but there was this plan all along, and man, it humbled the heck out of me, and made me a better husband, better father, better son, better brother. And, most importantly, that's when I was like, you know what, as we talk about owning our own business, man, it ain't ours. God's, dude. We're just a shepherd to it. You know what I mean? In all
Josh, welcome. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Spending your Saturday with us.
Yeah, man.
Well, business, politics, conspiracy.
Let's do the whole thing. I mean, let's make this interesting.
30 minutes of
Good content that was wasted, undocumented, man.
welcome. Kind of, you don't mind to start off, kind of give a little bit back.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Gosh, we do have time, right? So I mean, I'm originally from South Texas, man. I was born in San Antonio, raised down in the valley, Brownsville next to much like Omaha is the Council Bluffs, right? And, raised by a, single mom, she was an immigrant from Mexico City and, raising me and my sister just on her own. And she found this opportunity for us to move to Nebraska, of all places, dude, which was a huge culture shock for me. Because when you see me and you talk to me, like down there in Brownsville, what you get, you know what I mean? So then we moved to like Lexington, Nebraska, of all places. But the reason we moved there is my mom was working, in Dillard's like for 13 years and down in South Texas. And, she was getting a lot of business from people from Mexico crossing over and buying electronics from her. And then when the Mexican peso like just took a decline, like a total nosedive, like 2008 USA, Mexico is still trying to struggle back from it. Like when that took a huge dive, her money just went out out the door too. Like mom got no more commissions, everything else. So I was raised by the Lutheran Church. Just pause it right there. You know what I mean? And then she did a mission and we moved to Lexington for a few years. I will say that was probably the most miserable years of my life.
You brought out your Lutheran church. Your mom is an ordained.
Yeah, an ordained Lutheran pastor. He was a Lutheran pastor at this church, and after Lexington, we moved to Omaha, and she was a Lutheran pastor for 13 years in this church called Iglesia Cristo Rey, and it was off of 24th and J. What's that? No longer there. They lost funding. The Lutheran Church, when they did that split up to different synods, they're like got funding cut off. My mom did her best to try to get funding as much as she could for the church, and so after that, pretty much those doors closed. My mom just went on to live her life. And as far as for me goes, though, too, like man, just speed up to now where I'm at. Husband, father of 3. Life doesn't suck.
Yeah. So you growing up in Brownsville, for those that aren't familiar with it, I mean, that's literally border. Like you spent your life going back and
Oh, absolutely, man. Before 9/11 and all this other stuff, where you had to get passports to cross over. Like I would cross over by saying American citizen in the back seat. And like, all right, come on through. You know what I mean? So,
stationed in Tucson, Arizona.
oh, were you really?
Well, I got there in 2020 or 2000. And yes, I remember crossing the border.
Just easy, man. Yeah, it was easy.
U.S. citizen.
That's like, all right, man, go for it, dude.
19-year-old drunk dude crossing the border.
Dude, that's funny. And so we would cross over to Mexico because it was cheaper for pharmaceuticals, like food, all that stuff. Dude, my doctors and dentists were like in Mexico because one, you got better care. So let's not dive into that right into this episode. If you got better, you know what I mean? You got better care. It was affordable, just overall, just better treatment. And the only time we ever had, we had to go to the hospital in Brownsville. I was like, well, dude, I was young, ambitious, and I was wild, and I got hurt a lot. So, those medical bills, I'm sure there's a stack that my mom still has saying, hey, these are yours still, But now just, coming up from South Texas, but I've been living in Nebraska now, gosh, for the majority of my life,
They spoke here?
Yeah, I went to Omaha Central, graduated from Omaha Central, and that was, many moons ago. I'm 40 now, so that was 2002 when I graduated. But now it's and here I am, and it's at the end of the day, dude, it's all glory to God, really. I can't take credit for it. I can, he guided me to this point, and just pretty much allowed me to have the free will. And when he gave me too much reign on that free will is where I made some of the biggest mistakes, but the most humbling opportunities, at the same time too. So, normally people don't think, I would say, wouldn't thank God or other people like, hey man, thanks for putting me through this, through the crap, so thank you for putting me through hell, but I can absolutely say, hey, thank you God for allowing me to make these series of mistakes that have made me who I am today,
So it's funny you mentioned that. I know I was going to talk about this, but I started researching every year just to understand this. And New Year, I'm sure. I used to do it. I hadn't done it in like 3 months, but basic prayer journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started that again this week. And yesterday I wrote in there like 2025 would be a better leader, better communicator. So I was in prayer yesterday. Basically, was me whatever to be a better leader. When something personal happened, whatever, yesterday, and kind of down in the dumps about it. And then this morning I woke up. It was like 5 o'clock. I just couldn't sleep, and sitting there laying in bed, and I just started laughing to myself. I'm like, yesterday I asked for leadership, and then you throw me a leadership challenge last night.
Nice.
And so I just kind of sat there and laughed, and I was just like, well, okay, I do this, so let's get to work.
Well, it goes to the whole thing of, you pray for patience and God gives you opportunities to be patient. Like, pray for strength, gives you opportunities to be strong. Like, people think it's some, prayer is a magical pill. Like, just make me strong.
Yeah.
Like, nope, I'm going to knock you down. And so you can, I watched a Tony Robbins episode, and he was talking about that exact thing. Diamonds are formed under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I think, that's one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to start this podcast, is just all the business and personal and work-life balance, whatever that means,
right?
To get to the point where you're at now. So when you graduated high school, did you go to business school? How did you fit in?
After high school, I did all those things that, that you were supposed to do, like go to college and all this other stuff. And, my mom, and here's the thing, I'm going to give my mom some shout outs. And it's also one of those things too, like my mom was so adept into her work, being a single mom, and trying to make sure this church is flourishing, and there's a lot of I want to say Mexican culture, but Hispanic culture though too. When you were done with school, or if you were done with sports, or whatever, you went to your parents' place of work sometimes to go help them out. It wasn't one of those things where, my mom was like, hey, hey, did you get your homework done and stuff like that? Like, hey, help me with this thing, put this upstairs, and I would be at the church almost every day after school, like helping my mom do something along those lines. And at that age, don't hold me accountable. At the last thing at the age, like 17, 18, I'm not going to hold myself accountable. I'm not one of those kids. And so, but no, then I went to college, and Bellevue University had that thing at that time. I don't know if they still do, where like if you're Latino, they'll do your whole scholarship. And knowing what I know now, because I went back to school and got my degree. So when I went there, man, I dropped out. I had a free ride, dude, a full ride, just because I was Mexican. You know what I mean? A full ride. And me and my best friend, like, we just ended up just dropping out. That's where I met my best friend. And so we ended up just dropping out. We both had free rides. And so,
great friend.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, him and I are like, dude, there's sometimes though too, man, where him and I would party the day before. I'm like, dude, we got English class, and I would show up to his house and get in ready, and then we would go to class, and sucker would have better grades than I would. I'm like, dude, I had to drag your ass to school, man. And so, but it just wasn't God's plan at that time, and those are my younger, wilder years, and so I went to the traditional thing and dropped out. I thought I wanted to be this architect, because my mom always into me, like, you want to be an architect, you want to be an architect. Like, in her head, that was the most prestigious thing you could be, was a designer of buildings and homes and all this stuff. I'm like, all right, fine. So, spent a semester at UNO, took a history of architectural class, took a few other classes, dropped out. I ended up going back to college back in my late 20s, back to Bellevue University, this time paying for the actual amount, dude. So
Pay a little more.
Dude, yeah, man, I got student loans, and I'm thinking, idiot, dude. Like, if I can go back, like, hey, dude, whatever you do, like, you don't have to pursue the party life that you want. Why don't you just stay the course, get your degree, and then you can figure it out, right? Don't be in debt in the future, kid. But it is what it is. I did end up going back in my late 20s and completed, I believe at the age of 30, got my bachelor's degree in business and analysis and science. For what it was worth, do I use it probably today for my businesses now? Yes and no, to a certain extent. You know, a lot of the stuff and the strategic moves that I do now is because I learned a lot from my failure. You know, as we do though too, as we learn a lot from our sins, we learn a lot from our business failure. And God put me in the right ecosystem of people. You know, I have a business coach. I have another business coach in this company that I use to help me scale the company as well. You know, just doing all the right things. I'm part of this organization of masterminds, you know, so, you know, I'm blessed, man. You know, I'm really blessed. I'm glad, and I don't know if I can say this, I'm glad I went through this shit.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's
it's hard to say, like, you know, people are like, man, I'm thankful for that punishment.
Mhm.
I really am. You know what I mean? Chicks dig scars. So, you know, exactly. I do, man. I got my licks, dude. I got my licks, and that's okay. You know, I don't have the prettiest knuckles, and that's okay. You know, and
Mhm.
Lord knows I didn't have the best looking spirit either. You know, but there was this plan all along, and man, it humbled the heck out of me. You know, and made me a better husband, better father, better son, better brother. And, you know, most importantly, that's when I was like, you know what? As we talk about owning our own business, man, it ain't ours. It's God's, dude. We're just a shepherd to it. You know what I mean? In all reality. Because why? Because he can close the doors if he wanted to. You know,
Yeah.
if we don't continue to give him thanks and even thank him for, you know, the shitty days. You know, that's the problem though too, is that we don't take stock in our L's, you know. We give too much stock in our L's and not enough in the W's.
Mhm.
Like, hey God, I was asking for this merit. Yeah, but you live to breathe another day, don't you? Well, yeah, man, but this would really help out a lot if you can come through, you know, but not there yet.
Mhm.
You know, so there's a lot to be said, man, when you can go back and just fall on your sword and thank God for, you know, hey man, let me thank you for letting me making these mistakes because you evolve,
Mhm.
you know. And I think those are the biggest things I learned from, was it Walter? I was in Dallas, Texas for this event, called like $1 Million Mastermind. And one of the people who were on there was Walter O'Brien, one of the smartest dudes in the world, 197 IQ. The guy hacked into NASA at the age of 13 in Ireland, of all places.
Yeah.
And he was talking about your IQ, EQ, all of those things, right? Your emotional intelligence, but what it also takes to be smart. You know, your IQ is your genetic identity, like how we're just born with the color of our eyes, like the same IQ that we get. But he talks about you can still have a low IQ and be smart though.
Mhm.
And that's learning from your mistakes and pivoting. Dumb is where you just like, I'm just going to keep repeating these mistakes. You know what I mean? I don't care. I'll get a pretty good result every time, right? But it's the evolution from your mistakes,
Mhm.
the absolute evolution of your mistakes are like, not only did you learn from them, now you're going to try to find like 100 different ways of how you're going to see it coming.
Right.
And that's kind of where I put myself in that position now. It's where, you know, like, how is this, you know, like you could bring me like this cup of coffee. Okay, wonderful. Is it going to burn me? Is it going to spill on me? You know what I mean? Do I want to make sure I don't get this table stained? You know what I mean? Exactly. You know what I mean? So, but the part that, you know, there was like, or you could just enjoy this cup of coffee and shut up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, but a lot of those things, I mean, I love what you're saying. A lot of those things come from those past experiences, is because there was a point at some point, don't remember it, it wasn't a significant story, that the lid wasn't on all the way and it spilled in your lap. And like, you know, subconsciously, you just know that when you grab a cup of coffee, it just feels a little better. So it's all those little mistakes and when people focus on the mistakes, I don't think that there's a scale to it in God's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sin is sin, right? And a mistake is a mistake. It doesn't matter whether you're cheating on a test or you're cheating on your spouse. They're both cheating,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he uses every little mistake to correct our behavior.
Right.
I like what you're saying about using your degree, because that's a common theme in America right now. I feel like everyone's trying to move away from the university system. I was listening to Ty Lopez, I was doing a class of his, and he was talking about how he reads books. He said he reads a book a day. But when people think about that, they think he reads cover to cover every single day.
Yeah.
He skims a book and then finds what he wants to learn about, then goes back to that portion, reads that chapter, that, couple chapters, whatever. Because he says when people bring a book to a publisher, they might have an idea, and they could probably tell you that idea in one chapter.
Right.
But a publisher is not going to publish a book of one chapter.
Right.
So they need you to add all this filler crap. Same is true in university systems. They can teach you the core materials, but they need to fill it to be able to charge you for it.
Correct.
And so when you're going through these courses, and I still haven't finished my degree. I've been going to school for, 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
And I found that there's a piece of every class that I learn that I'm like, okay, this is good to know, but this one lesson in a, 8-week course, condensed course, is it really worth the whole thing? It's a piece of paper at the end of the day.
Right.
But it's the little lessons that, okay, I take one chunk from here, one chunk from here, and I put those together. And now this is creating, my mindset now. So,
well, do you think about that too? All right. So the university system, when it comes to something like that, back in the day when you used to apply for a job, like I remember applying for the jobs, like, like early 2000s. And what do they say? Degree required, experience, and all this other stuff, and back in that time, which really wasn't that long ago, where it's like that degree showed your employer, the people you're interviewing with, that you're able to start and complete.
Absolutely.
That's all it was worth, man. That's all it meant. Unless you were a doctor and everything else, you know what I mean?
In most jobs, they don't care what your degree's in. They care that you got.
They care that you got it.
Yep.
And for me though too, when I worked at Nebraska Furniture Mart, they're like, in order for you to, which is why I went back to school. Yeah, Nebraska Furniture Mart, when I was there at the time, like in my late 20s, that you had to be ongoing to go to this next level tier of management, And once you were completed, you were then able to apply and interview and attain that position once you were done. And the more I thought about it too, I'm like, why would you put your certain base salaried people in this student loan debt?
Mm-hmm.
This is a knock on NFM because I used to work, I loved working there, but that was just the one discrepancy I didn't comprehend. In order for you to get a position, you had to show completion versus how about all the work that I already have completed? Like if you look at my record, all my reports are clean, they're done. My TPS reports have the certain cover sheets that you require. You know what I mean? Like I did everything, but even when I left NFM, I was still ongoing and I ended up just completing my degree. Did I need my degree when I went to US Bank to be a branch manager and scale that corporate ladder? No. So I found out my district manager and the regional manager don't even have a degree. You know what I mean? Theirs was built off of like merit and success, and, to your talk, when you're talking about the two for college, man, it's like, you know what? I just want to pursue this construction management degree. Yeah, but you need to do these 2 years of the gen eds. You need to also have your sociology and also like geography. I'm like, why? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? What's the point?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? Why give so much money to the system if it's not really going to give me my residuals back? I have $40,000 on student loans, man. On deferred. Right. So hoping Biden was actually going to come through with this stuff. Obviously, he did. I mean, I actually got a call from down there. They're like, "Hey, we want to see when to get you back and going and get these minimum payments going for you." I'm like, "That's cool. I'm still waiting to see what happens." As a complete joke, I'm just making them laugh. But like, that is the part that's messed up about that. College says that you don't need it. I mean, if you're going to pursue a construction manager, you're going to be a dentist, veterinarian, a doctor. If my kids kind of be like, "Dad, I want to go to college." I'm like, for what? What do you want to learn?
Mm-hmm.
That a book can't teach you, that an entrepreneur can't teach you. You know what I mean?
University.
Like, let's just put you in front of the right people. Like, what is it you want to pursue? I want to get my business management degree. You don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, here are these books that'll teach you how to be a leader, how to see it coming. You know what I mean? And these are things they won't teach you. And you want real life application? All right, kid, work starts tomorrow. Get up at 6 a.m. Let's go. You know what I mean? And you're just going to shadow me. You know what I mean? And you're going to learn.
Doctors, lawyers, nurses, the engineers, those kinds of trades will always need that university.
100%.
Now, what my wife and I are trying to instill in our kids is just a desire for learning. Mm-hmm. And I remember growing up, I was an awful student. I barely graduated. I don't think I had a 2.0 GPA.
bro, I graduated with like a 1.7 or something like that. I barely made it.
I graduated like 300 of 320 or something.
Yeah, dude.
320. The rest of them were all dropouts, but
It was just because I didn't care. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I'll continue. Yeah.
Well, and so now I found this love of books, like for my wife.
Yeah.
We started getting into stock investing and stuff, and she bought me a bunch of books, and I read them all, and I actually really like this. And so now it's just, I'm hooked, and I just love learning new things and expanding my mind. But I see it in my son. Like, even when he was 5 years old, his assignment would be color in this picture, and he would just take a crayon, one streak, and he's like, I colored on it.
I did the bare minimum.
Exactly. And so, but we're trying to look at these things and be like, okay, so his skill is efficiency. Like, what is the bare minimum effort I can put into this task to get it done? And I'm the same way. If I go take a test, like my real estate license, my broker exam, like all my college classes, I don't study. I just show up, and either I know the material or I don't.
Right.
But at the end of the day, and I mean, I've taken hundreds of tests in my time in the Army. They're pass fail. It's like I get the same certificate if I get a 70 as the person who got 100. Right. And if that person that got 100 took 4.5 hours to take their test, and I took 15 minutes, I mean, I just got more of my time back.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah.
Did graduate, no one asked you for hey, can I see the degree? What was your GPA? Like,
yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
You say you graduated 1.7 or
yeah.
Where's that following you in life? Why does it matter?
It really doesn't, man. Like those, well, like I said, like those type of mirrors. And it was so funny is I remember the lady, her name was Gina Ponce, who were above university during that time. And she looked at my GPA. She was like, hey, my mom told me to come here. You know what I mean? Like I'm here not based off because this is what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really didn't. And so, my mom was like, you're going to college. What are you talking about, college? And so I went there, and that's like, wow, okay. But yeah, no one asked me too, like, what was your ended up GPA? And when I ended up graduating, unfortunately, I couldn't graduate with a 4.0 because now I'm carrying, now I'm invested, now I'm wiser. And I couldn't graduate with a 4.0 GPA because they're like, well, you dropped out of these courses and these are 0 classes and stuff. Man, I go, I gotta bring up old stuff, man. You know what I mean? Thought this is a blank slate. But no, they don't ask for those things. But to your credit though too, man, when you're you reading books and your kids seeing it, because now it's crazy how this though too is for parents. Nowadays us as parents are more involved, and I don't know, I can speak with you guys, but are more involved with their kids versus us being more involved in our work, like how we were raised. You know what I mean? We were raised to be like, hey, go entertain yourself. Versus like, wait, we want to see the entertainment. We want to be involved. We want to see the world through your eyes now. You know what I mean? Because it's new to us when we see that. But so when your kids see you read books, being intentional, and your kids see you doing the hard work and doing the mundane things, like doing the hard work consistently, they're like, well, shit, I mean, if dad's learning, I learn. If dad's telling us we got to go to church, we got to go to church. If dad's telling us don't forget to pray, so is mom, don't get me wrong, so is mom, then we have to pray. You know what I mean? So when they see those things and seeing you read those books, same thing with me, man, I fell back in love with reading books, because every now and then I wasn't much of a reader. And now I love it. Audiobooks are fun to fill in the gaps, but reading is fundamental, man. Absolutely. Because it is crazy that there is a single digit percentage, I can't recall the number, of people that actually read books in the U.S.
That's
Yeah, but they can't. It's very low, and the majority of that large percentage is because the majority of those people cannot read beyond a 5th grade level. That blew my mind.
Yeah, so my daughter, 6th grade, and they have, whatever accelerated reading, I think it stands for. And so they give you a point, and you gotta get 20 points or whatever it is in the quarter. But you get it for taking tests on the books you read. She's like, well, we can listen to audiobooks. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, we can listen to audiobooks. We don't have to actually read. I'm like, you're gonna read it.
Yeah, for sure.
Go get that book. I don't care, because like you said, it's different. Like, I think you sit in class for 8 hours, listen to a teacher. Like, you're learning to learn through audio already. Like, can sit there and read and learn from reading.
Right.
Well, and I mean, just a counter argument, that part, I try and resist a lot. You remember growing up when, we try and use calculators on math tests and stuff, and teachers always said, can I have a calculator in your pocket wherever you go? Well, yeah, we do. And so trying to not get too resistant to the technological changes, because knowing that our kids' generation is going to be AI. That is going to, further increase their productivity. And so allowing them the opportunity to explore these things and not resist it. I think audiobooks is a part of that. And I'd rather have them read an audiobook than play Minecraft. I'd rather have them play Minecraft than Call of Duty. So it's kind of the lesser of two evils. If they're not going to read a book and it's pulling teeth to get them to read, I'd rather them, do that or watch a documentary or something, keep their mind active.
Mm-hmm.
And so we give them the opportunity to read audiobooks, but there's times where, and we try and schedule, say 30 minutes a day when you get home, read a book, just something. But when they don't do that, we'll just set aside time. Like, all right, you guys been on TV for, too long today. Let's just all sit down and read a book. And so that's been productive.
Yeah.
I agree with that completely. I just want to make sure she's spending the 20, 30 minutes a day learning to read. My thing is like, okay, once you learn to read, once you get past that 5th grade level, kids, I'm not the strongest reader in the world, to be honest with you, but I do it pretty much every single day. So it's just the capability of doing it. So what I care about.
Oh, go ahead, man.
I was gonna say the thing for me is, like, my wife brought out when my 5-year-old, now 5-year-old, he was in preschool, I think 3 or 4 years old, and he's just defiant and everything. And I'm frustrated because I'm like, I just sit still, like, just do what you're told and all this stuff. And my wife is very good about breaking those barriers. Like, no, he is a problem solver. Like, if he wants something, he's going to get it.
Right.
He's the one who's climbing on cabinets, and we don't want to suppress that.
Right.
And the school system is sit down, shut up, and do as you're told.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't want him to do that. And so it's like every parameter that I put in place, my kids all have, their own tablets. And so I put the parental controls of they can't play any games until they read 30 minutes of books. Well, they've learned exactly what they need to do to skip through the books so that it looks like they read for 30 minutes, or they can figure out how to get around the parental controls.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's frustrating because I want them to do as they're told, but also kind of like that they're not restricted by barriers.
But so like the time you took to try to break the system, you know what I mean? Like, good for you, kid, but you kind of wasted your time.
Yeah.
You know, or you could just done the thing. This would have been your feature and your benefit. And here's the thing too about, so my kids haven't got to that point. Well, my 11-year-old son, I mean, they'll have him do some audiobooks at school, but I mean, otherwise, when he sees me read a book, he'll get like one of those goosebump books and he'll start reading or something like that. And then my daughters, 5 and 7, like, I enjoy reading to them. Like, if they have a book they brought back from school, and it was crazy though too, is that when you read your own adult book, you read it exactly on how you just read it. But when you read to your kids, your younger kids, you put so much emphasis on the not necessarily abbreviations, but like punctuations, everything. You know what I mean? Everything. Thank you. Everything that comes with, like, you emphasize, and then when there's bold letters, exclamation points, like, you speak with such emphasis. You know what I mean? And like, you articulate it to that max, capacity, and they're like, like, I really do. It's hilarious. I enjoy reading the books that I read. But man, I really do enjoy reading the books to my kids, because therefore it's hilarious. If you think about it, you would have bypassed that comment in all reality. You would have never given it that particular break when reading a book. But when you're reading like a 3rd grade book or a 2nd grade book, you're like, pause. You know what I mean? And read. And the thing is though too, for me on audiobooks, to kind of the point I was getting at, there's also, once again, a single digit retention when we listen to audiobooks. That's why when I just listen to them, while driving, it's passive. There's gonna be some things, like the one I just got done doing was One More by Ed Milet. And I kid you not, out of all the chapters, man, chapter 19, his final chapter, was the most compelling. One more. And he talks about his father. Dude, and that resonated with me so much, because that's how I felt. Because there was a time where I almost lost everything, and everything was my family. It wasn't the business, you know what I mean? I could have lost my family. And God pretty much said, man, one more. All right, I'm listening. I surrender. You know what I mean? And so when he did that chapter, I was like, oh, dude, it almost brought me to tears. And I sat and I listened. There was about 19 minutes, and I listened and I completely digested that. And I had these things I wanted to be my statements for the year was like, I'm wired to win was my business model. Personal, I am what I do as my for me, what I want to get done personally. I'm thinking, oh, those two are neat. Man, I threw those things out the trash, man. When I thought about, you know what? No, 2025 for the rest of my life. One more. Every single day that we cannot just take for granted, because we don't know, what's going to happen and when we get called.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I don't know who started it. I've seen it from Bradley on one of his things, but he asked a couple. I was, but like, would you take $10 million if I gave it to you?
Boy.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, you'd be happy with it, right? And then they're like, of course. I'm like, what if I gave you the $10 million and I told you you can wake up tomorrow? Would you still want that $10 million? And they're like, no.
Got stuff to do.
So you're telling me just waking up is more important than $10 million? Yeah. So why are we worried about money instead of just being grateful for what you
Right.
get today in the present right now?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why it's so important for people to find faith. And obviously that's my personal beliefs, but because if you take everything else away, what are you left with? And if you tie your identity to your possessions or your job or your relationship or anything like that, you take all that away, you're left with nothing. You have no purpose.
Yeah.
So like the truth now with identity, and one was a podcast just you and I did, but like that's the problem with the military. You get out of the military and they're so identified as military, and when you identify one thing and that one thing is taken away, that's you don't legend like identity in one thing, but it's hard to take that away from you, I guess.
Well, but you're not tying yourself to the religion. You're tying yourself to our Lord and Savior, right? And so looking at the job it's just a thing that I'm doing. Like you take that job away, like I'll find something else to do.
Mm-hmm.
You take away the money, the possessions, cars, houses, whatever. I'm still a son of God. I'll figure it out. But if you don't have that, then you literally have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Joe is a prime example. I gotta mention that. So it was comedian, like Christian comedian. He was talking about book of Job. He's like, could you imagine how bad Job's wife was? So I was like, the devil took everything from him except for his wife. Like all his money.
No, you can have this one.
Like, I'm like, no.
No, you can have her. Yes, that's awesome. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I like what you said about, I mean, we're stewards of this.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this in the past episode too, about people track their net worth. But if you look at it as assets under management, like we are managing these assets for God. And when we're gone, he's going to pass that on, wherever his, and so I think that's something that we try and remember. And, for my wife and I, real estate is very up and down. Most businesses, droughts and then, abundance. When we get in those droughts, it's, was it Matthew 7? No, not 7. I don't, but saying that, if God wouldn't let the birds starve, why do you think that he would forget about you?
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever we get in these droughts, it's like, we still have groceries, our bills still somehow get paid.
Yep.
If we ever went into a point where we had to declare bankruptcy, we're not going to be starving, and so if that is, and looking at investments the same way of like a risk reward, you want asymmetrical risk. The downside is death and living eternity without God.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's nothing that I can do as long as I'm following Christ to get that, then you could lose everything else. And I have unlimited upside and my downside is protected.
100%.
So I think that's kind of got me through some tough times.
No, dude, absolutely, man. It's where, on the entrepreneurship side of things, where things don't work out the way you would, right? But man, I got this sign, says grateful on the pantry going in, and dude, whatever the level of success I end up achieving, or wherever things end up being at the end of the day, man, I get to get up and watch my kids get up in the morning. I get to see them eat, which is by far my favorite victory, man. Watching my kids eat, not like watching them eat, but like watching them eat, like, man, I didn't do that. God did that. And I was the steward, you say, to help get to that point. Those things I'm grateful for. They have a warm bed to sleep in, especially during these cold days, man. I thank God a lot, man. When I do my nightly like shutdown of the house, like all systems, like everything gets locked up, you know what I mean? And I step outside, I'm like, golly, I'm like, Lord, be with those that don't have a home right now, because man, it's crazy, And so I take a tremendous stock in those things. Those stock overwhelmed whatever bad happened that day, man. I get to wake up, like you said. I get to wake up every morning, man. Screw that $10 million. I get to wake up. I get to wake up and see my kids. I get to wake up and I love how my wife, greets the kids in the morning. It's my favorite thing, just the abundance of love. But it's hilarious at the end of the night. You could see that abundance of love like withering away. That's enough. Go to bed. And I don't blame her too, man. We got some good kids. At the end of the day, they all have their opportunities just like everybody else. But those are the things, man, I'm eternally grateful for, man. Seeing, all right, man, they're asleep. Oh, that's so awesome. You know what I mean? What more do I need? It's not so we have the cars because we don't have like fancy cars, but we have more than most. And Pastor Craig mentioned this too in the message last week. Is like, if your vehicle has a house for it, you're rich. You know what I mean? If you get to park your car in the garage, you're rich. I can't park my truck in the garage, but you know what I mean? My wife can park her car in the garage. We're good, man. We're rich. We have enough. We have enough. And I already were talking about too, like what's freedom. If I was to stop what I was doing and not trying to pursue anymore and try to perfect exactly where I'm trying to fine tune where we're at as a, company wide, and trying to do some other things though too. Trying to look into an acquisition of another company. I already have that freedom. There's financial freedom and there's freedom. I think those are two different things. Financial freedom would be like, how do I put this? For us, financial freedom is like not worrying about the price of milk, right? There's that financial freedom that I dignify. But financial freedom would be like, hey, you want to go to Hawaii for a month? You know what I mean? Sure, there's financial freedom. But for me, freedom is being able to go to my kids' recitals, soccer games, football practice, all those things. That's freedom, man. Because I know like my mom didn't get that opportunity. I know my wife's mom didn't get that opportunity. So for us to be able to capture those moments, like I emailed my youngest teacher because I was like, talk about freedom. Like, hey, Valentine's Day party for the kindergartners, all this other stuff. I'm like, hey, Mrs. So-and-so. I was like, would I be able to, I'd love to be able to attend to participate. But on the 14th, me and my son are driving down to Dallas for a soccer academy, a training for the weekend. I would love to volunteer if it falls on any other day. She goes, it falls on February 13th. I know what you're going to say. I'm going to miss Valentine's Day with my wife, but she said, go do it. Go be with our son. Go do this. My mom and my sister, my niece, they're all going to do a girls' Valentine's Day dinner somewhere nice. You know what I mean? So it's cool. But that's freedom, man. I get to participate in my youngest Valentine's Day party. And the next day, I get to go on a road trip and spend some more one-on-one time with my son down in Dallas, where we get to see family though too, and watch him do soccer practice. Man, that's God's work, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all God's work.
Well, and it doesn't take $1 billion to have that.
No, it don't.
That's where
it don't. People think that.
Exactly. And having that, lower net worth of $1 to $5 million, that's enough for most people to live that kind of life and just retire. Granted, I've never seen anything in the Bible that says anything about retirement. I think God's put us for it. And, while we're maybe start off working labor jobs, and, we're all still, really young. So when you get up into 60s, 70s, 80s, you're still working, but maybe that work is, becoming a grandparent. And but exactly.
Exactly.
And in order to have that opportunity, you have to get the financial assets in order. And so I think it's great.
People often talk about financial freedom without looking at the freedom of finance or freedom of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think freedom of time is people are talking about finances. I think what they're really thinking is freedom of time, because you can have $50 million a day. If you can't do what you want to do with that money, like I look it up in the safe, like it's yours, you should never touch it.
Yeah.
What does that do? Like
Exactly.
I'm talking about the things that money can buy. That's what you really want. Be it time, be it Hawaii, be it Lambo, whatever. That's what you really want. Not no one can.
Right. No.
Like it's the freedom of time, the freedom of autonomy, the freedom of spend the day with who I want to spend the day with. So that's what I think. We always just look at it from a financial standpoint.
Right. No, we do that too. Like, oh, we got to pay this bill, we got to do that bill. But like I said, at the end of the day, like, all right, cool. We get freedom.
I think.
Man, I remember when I used to work Saturdays, man, from like sun up to sundown. When I worked at U.S. Bank, when I was on the sales floor, Nebraska Furniture Mart a long time ago. I worked at, the U.S. Bank the U.S. Bank that I would work at were inside grocery stores, man. Those were retail hours, open 7 days a week. And then I was climbing that ladder, and like, okay, cool. I'm gonna sacrifice a lot of this time. Good thing is, like, me and my wife were just kind of like dating at that time. You know what I mean? So she said, obviously we're married now. So if I were to tell her like, hey babe, someone called in sick, I got to go in from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. or Saturdays 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. or Sundays 11 to 4. And now I don't have to worry about someone saying like, yeah, feels so good. Oh, all right, cool, feel better. You know what I mean? Just, if you got to work from home, that's fine. Just whatever. I don't have to get up and go do those things. I get to get up and I get to catch a 4 p.m. service. You know what I mean, on Saturday. And what does that free up? My Sunday. You know what I mean? Because now the only event that I'm obligated to is to take my daughter to her 1 hour practice indoor. You know what I mean? And we get to do other things. That's freedom, man. It really is. And you're right. I guess I'm not a huge fan when people say like financial freedom. Just, man, pursue freedom, because the financial freedom does buy back your time. And I would recommend reading that book though too. Buy Back Your Time. That's a good read.
Yeah, I love that.
So
have you implemented that into your business?
Oh, absolutely. And I saw him do his presentation at that $1 Million Mastermind in Dallas.
Okay.
They had some really good keynote speakers, man. Some really badass speakers, dude. Cody Sanchez was there. She is the one to finish up. That girl got me all fired up.
Oh, yeah.
She got me all fired up. Sammy Knight was there too. Sammy Knight he was the guy that started Mossy Oak Camo and then sold it. So I was like, dude, I shook my hands with the billionaire and read his book called Behind the Gate. That was a good read. And Sammy Knight too, man. 8-figure guy. Shook my hand, humble as hell. I was like, hey, I'm in the middle of reading your books. Very nice to meet you. He goes, I need your friend request on Facebook. Yeah, dude. You know what I mean? That was really cool, dude. And I ran up like, oh my gosh, that was Sammy Knight. My business card's like, yeah, that's Sammy Knight. So I ran over there. But the gentleman, I'm having a brain fog moment that wrote the book Buy Back Your Time. Dan Martell. He right there. There it is. Like his presentation was with conviction as well. There I am taking pictures of his presentations. Oh, dude, I'm taking pictures of his presentations,
Yeah.
And like, oh, cool. But he's right though too. That introduction alone to that book of the get shit done mentality does wreck you.
Yeah.
And the first 2 years of me being on my own in the business, like that get shit done mentality ended up just destroying me in more ways than one. And it allowed, the people that I have within my business are almost pretty much drill holes in the boat as I'm trying to keep it afloat.
Talk about your transition from U.S. Bank to business and kind of how you got in that and struggles.
Man,
I don't know what you
my poor wife. I'm just going to start off with my poor wife because I dragged her into it. working at US Bank, I was promoted to a senior branch manager, and I was also up overseeing other branches as well. Um, and while working in South Omaha, it was off of 24th and Vent. We had a lot of blue collar people. They're just your standard customers. They're gonna work at the beef packing plants, just laborers. But then you had your contractors come in, drywall hands, broken backs, dirty hands, and you just see their checking accounts full. And you're like, huh. And we're wearing like a 3-piece suit. Mind you, it is J. Ferrar, J.C. Penney. You know what I mean? But, shop right, man. You don't always have to shop expensive, And with the degree, certifications in the back of my office, I'm like, these guys have more money than I do. And at the same time, the thought in my head went in like, well, these guys can't be any smarter than I am. Can't be any smarter than I am. And I mean that with respect, though, too. Not that we're calling them dumb by any means, but you ever seen that movie with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin, where they're lost in the woods, and Anthony Hopkins is like, well, what a man can do, another can do. So when I first watched that movie, like way back in the day, I was like, it resonated with me. Like, what if you can do it, man? I can do it. If you can do it, I can do it. Or at least I'm going to try to do it. You know what I mean? And I just started asking a bunch of these questions. Me being bilingual helped. How did you get into roofing? Install. How did you get into this and that? So essentially I'm talking and I'm recruiting some of these also subcontractors, and I decided to dive into subcontracting work. So when I would while still working at the bank, so I would take off my suit at the end of the day, I would go knock on these other roofing companies that were established, like your McCoy Roofing, this other company that's already closed their doors, and I can get into that later. Like trying to earn their business. Like, hey, I'm bilingual. I can be your point of contact. This and that. Well, my wife was pregnant. At that time, she was working at like Lake Regency, over there. And we started getting busier. I was building this book of business of subcontract work. Meanwhile, I'm like trying to coach like 6 bankers, 1 assistant branch manager, another assistant branch manager at another location, though, too, trying to make sure all these businesses still stay afloat. And now I'm getting phone calls during the day while I'm doing one-on-ones. I was feeling terrible. Like, my one-on-one time with you should not come up short because I'm getting a phone call from a guy like, hey, we need this. Cool. You know what I mean? Let me see what I can do. I ended up dragging my wife into the industry. We're like, I know you can't speak Spanish. She's 100% Irish. She is ginger. You know what I mean? I got a ginger white woman, and doesn't speak a lick of Spanish. I go, I just need you to be eyes and ears. I'll translate. Well, that started to pick up. And then Amaya was on her way. And then after 2 years of doing that, I was offered a GM position for a roofing company and worked there for about a couple of years. The culture was terrible. There was no SOPs, no processes in place, as much as they'd love to echo them. You couldn't tell them how to take from A to Z at all. Like, they were like, you got to be A and D. But what about these other letters? You got to be this. There was no structure. There was no leadership. It was just a terrible environment. So after they closed their doors, it forced my hand to really go out on my own. And because fear is an amazing alarm clock. I got this company that closed their doors. They owe me thousands and thousands of dollars in commissions. And I got to provide, man. Sure enough, I got the first job, did this, did that. Okay, I was able to start something, and get things going. But along the way, man, I learned there's a lot of evil in this world. You met one of those gentlemen, we're not.
I don't know much you get into.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You met that gentleman, though, too. Like, I've had people rob me. People that I trusted robbed me, and so God find me another way to navigate out of that. That's still ongoing, though, too. Well, they're more so just burying themselves, really. To get to this point, because I also had, an opportunity to earn and ended up just burning more relationships than anything else, because you don't mix business with friendships, really, at the end of the day. And one thing gets sacrificed, and at the end of the day, it's your friendship, So, but now here I am. I own Artisan Roofing Inc. I own Artisan Development. Trying to do some other things, though, too, with my VP, into some specialty contracting and cold storage. We have some projects lined up to do that as well. Trying to see about this other company that could also help catapult what we're doing and really put us on a stamp on the map was like as an elite contractor in Omaha. And I don't think that was ever really the plan. I think, well, it kind of was. I wanted to be something different, which is why I have my general contractor license. I wanted to be another like storm chasing company, like, you know, like, hey, I'll do your roof. You know what I mean? I'll do your roof. And I will, you know what I mean? And it pays the bills. It does. But with the insurance game changing so much, as we were talking about earlier, you know, I want to build my book of business, not to be so codependent on insurance, because insurance controls the narrative at the end of the day. So those have its growing pains, you know, they do. And we're on the right track to start tapering away. We're still going to keep doing insurance work, but it's no longer going to be the majority of our business that we have to be dependent on capital wise, because like, hey, this adjuster can't get back to us within 6 months, 5 months. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, dude? It's getting worse. And with the stuff that's going on in Cali, man, it's only going to get worse. Heck, Progressive's already pulled themselves out of Nebraska. Progressive already pulled themselves out of Nebraska. And policies are only getting worse.
We're getting dropped or raised left and right. It's crazy.
You know, your deductibles that used to be a certain amount, now they're going to be 1 to 2% of your total max policy, you know, or if your house does get affected by a tornado, well, here's your little deductible. But if it gets hit by hail, here's your big deductible that you got to pay to take care of this, you know. So it's just getting worse before it's getting better. And the best way is to start pivoting and start planning, you know. Think about the two for you guys, like you said, mentioned in real estate. What do you guys foresee changing? You know, that you have to be like, ooh, let's start pivoting in this direction, you know, because this could affect us in this certain way, you know. And I'm brand new to the game, you know what I mean? But I still go with caution, like, all right, who's going to screw me over? You know what I mean? You know, just to see those things coming. But
so you were still at US Bank doing all these subcontracts.
Yeah. And
I mean, do you ever wish that you walked away from US Bank altogether and just dove into that? Or do you think it served its purpose, providing stability?
It did. It for sure served its purpose. And I apologize, got off to a tangent there though too. Thanks for reeling me back in. But like,
you love tangents.
You know, where it did, once again, thank God for those moments, man, because I don't know how we did it. And when me and my wife would switch off, where she was like, okay, all right, well, I'm done for work, you know, and then she would go home, hold down the fort, and then I would take off my suit, put on boots, jeans, and a t-shirt, and go visit the job sites that we're working on, you know, at the end of the day. We did that consecutively, you know, and I don't regret it because it got me to this point. But the one thing I do regret was I do thank God for the troublesome that I went through to get to this point. But I regret dragging my wife along. You know?
I was going to ask about that. So we met, I think, a year ago.
Yeah.
Well, actually.
He's got it on his calendar.
Well, it's funny. I pulled out in front of him going down the road.
Yeah.
And he followed me all the way to church. And we're going to men's prayer breakfast.
Yeah.
No.
January last year, because he's doing a quarter. And the one's coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I just got it actually.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
I think it was that we met.
Yeah.
Last year.
I was waiting for a road rage story or something.
I just got these guys all black Ram, like all of a sudden, like people. It's not, you know how it is though too, man. Especially you're the provider, you're the protector. Whenever you see somebody following you or you're following someone, you're going to like, wait, this is good. You know what I mean? Like you're no longer focused on the music you're listening to or the thought that was in your head. You're like, man, what's up? You know, what do you need to be prepared for? You know? But yeah, I paid attention to that though too. You're like, we ended up sitting at the same table. Yeah, what's up, man?
We had a lot of mutual people through real estate and stuff. I had some. I forgot. That was a tangent. I forgot where I was going, but yeah.
Well, no, I was talking about like the biggest regret though too is dragging my wife through that. I don't think I ever once actually apologized to her. Now that I think, you know, and us as man, like we don't really want to tell our wives that they were right. You know what I mean? But it's being fun. But it's like now that I think about it, I think she's the one that I have, and even my kids though too. My kids went through a lot of crap though too, you know, and it was due to those decisions that I was making thinking they were the right decisions. I didn't have a support system, so I tried to figure it out myself. And the biggest thing I try to also tell my team, and I always tell everyone, it's like, lean not on your own understanding. You can take that both spiritually, professionally, and personally. You know what I mean? And it's true. I had one of my guys, struggle. He's trying to like fix himself, and I'm like, you got to stop doing that, kid. You can't lean on your own understanding. You got to seek help, whether that's above or someone in a leather chair sitting across from you. You know what I mean? You can't do it on it. And, when I tried to do it on my own, man, mistakes were made. In all sorts of forms or fashions. And that's probably the one thing though, too, as we got to this point, and me and my wife, man, we're such an amazing place in our marriage, and spiritually though, too, we are in sync, but that's the one thing is that I didn't apologize to my wife that got us to this point.
And that's what I was going to ask you about. So when we first met last year, your wife is working with you alongside.
Yeah.
And 6 months ago, so this summer, I think it was, she transitioned
to one upper. Yeah. Yep.
And that was for just relationship. And not that it was in a bad place or anything. I don't mean it like that.
No, but
it was to better your relationship.
It was.
And I asked that, Tim, like, and I talked to him whenever you tell me the story, but y'all never had any separation. Like, work was home.
Oh, dude.
It was all, so I mean, kind of, you're experiencing with that.
It was, man. It was just kind of one of those things though, too, because, she was handling the books, the day to day. And, she would see some things and she's just trying to be protective, right? She's trying to be protective. And, there'd become times though, too, like we didn't leave work at work, man. It started off first thing in the morning. It would start off our days on the wrong foot. It would end our days on the terrible foot, and it just became one of those things though, too, where, she said like, hey, I want to be done working with you for the sake of our marriage and our relationship, because the industry that we're in too, man, has a lot of widgets. It has a lot of moving parts, and you can try to keep it simple, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of unknown that happens with construction every single day. And there's a lot of things that we allow for these project management to be done because we're allowing humans, other people, to make these decisions for you, for your business. Right. And so when mistakes are made, man, they're huge liabilities. They are. I know I've lost my fair share on people that used to work for me, end up settling these things out of court, settling these things costs. And the best way that Pat Ben David put it on, what is it? Your next 5 moves was like, don't play the victim. Just say out loud, you got to hustle in your own environment.
Funny, I think you named my favorite book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Choose your enemies wisely.
Yeah.
That one I'm reading though too right now. But like,
that one's a good one, especially this time of year. Business flex. I like the way he titled it, and what the book actually is.
And you're right though too, because when you think of choose your enemies wisely, and then right now I just finished the part before I started getting ready. That's one of them too. Like, oh man, I gotta get going. Was like he talks about the 14 people, they should be on your enemies list. But in the beginning of the book, he talks about poverty. Poverty should be an enemy. The devil should be an enemy. You know what I mean? All these things that you don't want to go back to this point should be an enemy, versus saying, Ryan Miller didn't like me. You know what I mean? So I'm going to write his name on there. I'm going to put his name on the wall. You know what I mean? Like, there's like some mixed feelings while reading the book. I'm still reading it. But then that last one, I just read the 14. I was like, oh, that kind of puts me, it doesn't put me in the Christian state of mind when I'm thinking of 14 lists of like enemies, because it's all the people that you ended up loathing and hating or re-disliking, if that's even a phrase or word. You know what I mean? The people that you don't want to go back to those dark moments. But the good thing is that when you find yourself in those dark moments, like Ed Milet says in his book, the power is in knowing like, hey, I'm in a bad place. Let's go back. You know what I mean? Because that is kind of one of those things though too, man. When you think about your enemies, it does put you in a dark point, and that's where the devil wants you to kick it with them.
I think, I don't know how far you are in the book, but as you transition, like I think Michael Jordan
Mm-hmm.
kind of, damn me, like, had that mentality, like, don't tell me I can't. Like, I would prove you wrong, but people always make a big deal about Michael Jordan getting cut from his, he had the chip on his shoulder, so he got cut from his baseball basketball team.
Yep.
That story is halfway true. He got cut by the varsity team as a freshman,
Yeah.
and he held a chip on. Like, it kind of got pulled.
Right.
What freshman makes varsity basketball team? Not many of them.
Right.
Um, so, but he always looked for that edge. And you run Coy Roofing,
Yeah.
large, like, real company, and Coy would be an enemy.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and that's what I said. I don't like the title of the book.
Right.
Because it's a business planning book.
Yeah.
And it's like, start off choosing your enemy. So who's your enemy is going to be this year?
Yep.
Coy Roofing, it's Vegas.
Yeah.
And
Actually sponsored by McCoy.
and growing, or, like having a North Star to aim for.
Right.
As much as.
But I don't think enemy has to be like a hatred type thing, right? Because
Like I said, depending on where you're at in the book.
Yeah.
and I've never read it, so this, yeah, I mean, but I think an enemy can be a competitive advantage too, because it's know your enemy better than you know yourself, right?
Work together.
Mm.
Mostly selling real estate. Your wife can be your enemy from a competitive standpoint. That, like,
Someone to prove wrong or whatever, and it's like
top of $1 million this year in sales. I'm gonna do 6.
Mhm.
Yep.
So just
That's because there's two sides in that book. I mean, there's that one side where it's like you got these pictures on this dartboard
Right.
you want to keep, and then you got this like humble list that. So don't get so focused on this one. Get focused on this one, because Pap Davis sure does love talking about Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. I tell you what, though. But he talks about like Tom Brady's enemies, and it was like Joe Montana with the 4 Super Bowl championship ring. He talks about those people being the enemies like to strive for.
Mm.
Yeah.
Eli Manning. Mm.
Yeah.
it's in there that he talks about how he came in with a chip on the shoulder, and he got to 4 Super Bowls, and then he didn't have a chip on his shoulder.
Mm.
Mahomes came in, and they started comparing Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady, and then if you look at his career, there was a lull in there where he didn't win any Super Bowls, and then they started comparing Patrick Mahomes to him. Now he had a new enemy because he had to be better than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Mm.
So he started.
It just got him like geared up. Same thing with like Kobe Bryant. Like he didn't necessarily, he had enemies on the court, but his biggest enemy was himself. That man wrote a contract to himself that you cannot defeat me. You know what I mean? This is what you're going to get. It's kind of like in like Atomic Habits, reward yourself when you accomplish X, Y, Z.
My favorite Kobe story was they're getting ready for a basketball game. So they got the curtain down the middle of the thing, and one team used to practice before on one side, and the other one practice on the other side. This guy came in, and he heard somebody on the other side doing shit around, and he's shooting, and he realized it was Kobe. Like, I didn't realize it, but he realized it was Kobe. He's like, I'm gonna beat him. I'm gonna stay here longer than Kobe. And so they're shooting. It's like shooting for a while. He kept shooting. It's like, man, that's been an hour and a half, still shooting. It kept going. And finally the dude just gave up. Like, I don't get we were ready for the game. And they played the game, and after he went up to Kobe, he's like, man, how long did you do a shoot around before the game? He's like, I tried to be there longer than you. And he couldn't. He's like, I knew that was your mentality, and I wasn't gonna let you beat me.
Yeah, man.
And that was a shoot around. Kobe didn't know who was on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
He still wasn't on.
Doesn't matter.
But and it's all these little competitions that he did, and I heard a similar story of when they went to the Olympics and all the guys were out partying and everything like that, and they get back from the bars at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and Kobe's lacing up his shoes, going to start practice.
He would actually drive them to the bar.
Yeah,
They'd be their DD and go practice while they're at the
Yeah.
it's incredible. But
The monument actually have that sign in my office.
Heck yeah, I love it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, all those little competitions, like I remember doing that as a kid, just simple little things where no one's actively competing and stuff. And I feel like somewhere along the way, you get this suppression of like limiting your capabilities and what you can do. And it took my wife telling me about the things that I'm good at to start getting that drive again. Now the things that motivate me is like Dana White talking about, I need someone to tell me I can't do it.
Yeah.
Because that's like the chip on your shoulder.
That does help you out a lot though too, man. When they tell you you can and you can't and you can. I remember that story when I was at US Bank. The branch I took over was in South Omaha. Not a whole lot of social security numbers to work off with, a lot of I-10s, a lot of just no EINs or IDs at all, right? And we're competing against these West Omaha branches and have just these 6-figure mortgages. And, we got to refinance this, we got to refinance that. Took a branch that had no lending capability. We, knocked it out of the park. We were like branch of the year.
Wow.
Out of, I'm trying to think of how many banks in the district, because there's 3 districts, and out of all the branches, man, we outperformed them all. And we did it because we were told, like, this isn't a lending branch. This isn't this type of branch. Not only were both of our arms tied behind our back based off of our clientele, we maximized it. You know what I mean? And it's like kind of seeing the deal too, where I have yet to hear somebody tell me like, hey, you can't do what you do. Kind of wish they would too. I really wish somebody says like, hey, you'll never be this. All right. I'm going to go do it right now. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing that drives you more than just being told, you can't do it. And so far, God bless that person's soul that has yet to challenge me that way, but it's just right now, it's just me versus me, kind of like you guys would too. Like, it's just you versus you at the end of the day. Same thing with Kobe Bryant. That was in contract. I actually hated that dude because I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan. So during that era with like Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, just some of the greats and some of the greatest basketball that we ever seen, like in the 90s and even in the 2000s before it got to like, where LeBron James came along, really, it started to get real soft, soft, but like
The cast about my hatred for him.
I'll join there with you.
Jump on that one.
But like, I thought Kobe was this ball hog. I thought Kobe was this person, just everything else. And it wasn't until his passing that I was like, this dude was badass. This dude was a badass father. He was a badass entrepreneur. He was just overall just badass. Here I am trying to like stick up for Tim Duncan, why Tim Duncan was better and all, the big fundamental, why he was better than the Black Mamba, but in all reality, man, like upon his passing, that man held all those cards. No one knew. I'm sure certain people aren't as open, but in the public, no one knew that he was this badass addict. You will see him take his daughter to the games and stuff like that. But when you started hearing and watching all of his interviews, like,
yeah, he was in a transition phase for sure.
yeah,
Like he wrote a kid's book and entrepreneurship and all that stuff. So, question: do you remember where you were when you found out Kobe died?
Yeah, we were actually in Mexico. We were in Mexico, so it's kind of like a 9/11 story, right? Where were you on 9/11?
Do you remember?
I vaguely do. I remember
I was driving on the interstate and I was in Tampa for work and I was driving down the interstate on Saturday or something like that. Yeah. So
I went down the rabbit hole and I had to read it. I mean, that's how my mind is. I have to read every news article. I'm like, this has to be BS.
Yeah.
And it was 5 years ago. I think in January.
Yeah, it was 2020.
Yeah.
It was 2020 when it happened. Yeah. And I was like, damn. Then you started seeing like hashtag girl dad, that me being a girl dad, I have my 11-year-old son, then I have my 2 daughters, thinking about being a girl dad. And, when you start to see that, you also get influenced, to be more present, and when you see that, you're like, man, I got to be better. I got to be a better husband. I got to be a better father. You're like, this dude's over here and my best friend's a badass dad, so when I see him being a good dad, he'll send me snaps or send me texts. I'm like, hey, dude, no, I got to go get the Nerf guns and go chase my kids around the house. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like when you have that ecosystem, you have those people that want to make you better, spiritually here too, God's divine intervention and why, I had to follow you or you followed me to church, for man's breakfast, those things, man, can be taken for granted. And you got to see like, hey, this is this one opportunity, and you got to take advantage of like when God opens those doors, you got to run in, man. You got to run in for sure. But yeah.
One thing that I think I struggle with a lot is, like you said, leaving work at work. And because my wife and I, we work so close, I mean, and we enjoy it. It's not like we get home and, we're miserable having to talk about work. It's just what we enjoy doing. We love building these businesses together. But because we work from home most of the time, work never leaves. It's always, a room over. And if the kids are all filling up the couch and we're like, well, we'll just go sit in the office, because it's almost like a habit. And when I remember when I was in the Army and I'd be gone for, 2-3 weeks at a time, I'd come home, the kids would greet me at the door. They'd, be excited. And then over time, it's like that kind of fades away. And I heard a podcast recently. This guy was talking about how he wanted to be greeted when he came home. He's like telling his wife that, I want everyone to be excited to see me, and I want to enjoy being home. It's like, okay, then you need to leave your work at work. Because when you come home and you've had a long day, like, you come in with this, kind of defeated mentality, and now the kids, they start to, treat you that way when you come home. So one thing is, every time I walk through the door, I try to just run up and just give them hugs. And now it's picking back up, and it's just a reminder that it's all in our control. And as a leader of the house, which I wasn't strong in my faith when my wife and I met. I've gotten to the point now where I feel like I have more regular practices, but she knows way more about, the Bible and stories. But for me, I'm called to be a leader regardless. It doesn't matter if I just opened the Bible for the first time or if I'm a biblical scholar. So how can I be a leader today? And sometimes it is just going and praying with the kids, or, and I've just seen the changes that happens. And one story I heard was this: people were talking about how their dog was just awful, and they, wanted to bring it back to the pound. And they're like, you know what? I'm just going to pray for the dog. And what the dog's behavior completely changed. And they said that all that changed was how their heart was towards the dog. And it just, as creators, we create the environment that we want.
Right.
Have you ever seen the thing about the Japanese story with 2 pots of rice, and they tell one pot of rice that they love it and it's beautiful.
Oh, no.
And then the other pot of rice, they say, I hate you, you're awful, whatever, for like a month. Well, and then this one starts to mold, and the other one doesn't. I've seen them do it with plants and stuff too. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I like the principle.
That's interesting. But I'm convinced it wouldn't be wrong though too. Like, you think about, like, you feed that negative energy, some negative energy.
I'm convinced that, someone's going out and changing the other rice just to, keep this one different. But still, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And, and when we realize the power that our words have in our actions and how we treat, I mean, a lot of times, and like you said, this LeBron James culture is victimhood, and you want to come home and tell how awful your day was and everything like that. But
flipping and flopping.
Yeah. A lot of times, as the protector, the provider, it's protecting them from those things too.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have a circle of men that you can tell your problems to.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, this circle of men that I have will tell me, have you talked to God about it? And usually the answer is no.
Yeah. Dude, I do. I go all in. And sometimes though too, probably the conversations I have with God, are a little probably unorthodox, but he created this. He already knew how many hairs were going to be left on my head at this age. You know what I mean? When I was in my mother's womb, right? But if I can't be real with God, and he already knows, like, he sees it all, right? He knows how raw I am and how blunt and bold and everything else that comes with it. If I can't just say, like, hey God, how about now you come up, or you know what I mean? It's terrible too, because earlier you were talking about, like, when you ask God for patience and everything else. My mother and I were talking about this so too, where I love now that me and my mother are, like, when we talk about spirituality, she's in Mexican culture, your mother and your grandmother are highly, highly spiritual, man. If anything, they got that phone line tapped. They're like, mine, can you put in a good word for me? You know what I mean? But it's where, like, when you ask or you invite those things, but I should be able to say, God, like, man, you know what? I'm at wit's end. I did all these things. I did these things. I completed these tasks. What more do you want from me? What else do I have to do? Show me or come through. Like, and who knows how much backlash I might get out of this, but I should be able to have those conversations with God. Why not? You should be your best friend. I have those kind of conversations with my best friend, like, man, can you believe this day? Can you believe this? bleep, 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 you know what I mean? Bleep, bleep, bleep. You know what I mean? You know, I should be able to have those raw conversations with God. I do have my also like true prayers and humbling conversations with God. But I should be able to just say out loud, like, this isn't fair. Or, you know what I mean? Like, tell me what lesson, show me the lesson or something else. So what is supposed to come of this? When you get in business, when you get rejected, time and time again forever, so mind you, it's a numbers game at the end of the day when it comes to business, right? But when you feel just like these rejected parts, you know what, man? How many times do you get rejected by a certain girl that you're trying to ask out and all this other stuff? You're like, damn, that sucks, man. I'm getting shot down. Like, what's up, man? I'm good looking. You know what I mean? I'm this. Why, like, you know, but it gets to that shelf point, that shelf life. So to be like, man, God, I need you to straight up tell me what's going on. Because I'm really getting tired of getting kicked in the bag.
Well, I like what you're saying about complaining to God too, though, because even in the Bible, I mean, Jesus said, why have you forsaken me? But God said that there takes more faith to complain to him than there does to just write him off altogether.
Right.
He's sitting there like, Lord, this isn't my will, but your will. You know, like, I don't even do this. Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I know what pain this is going to be.
Right.
That was the 40-day fast, right?
And so yours was, you were saying all the cross.
Mm-hmm.
This right before when you through the garden praying.
Right.
Way back when the disciples were sleeping.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
One of his prayers was, well, God, I don't want to do this. Like, this is your calling at me, but not the calling I want.
Right. But that's still a show of faith.
Yeah. And it's,
yeah.
Man, I was talking to his dad. Be like, man, I don't want to do this, dude. Like, why do you want to put me through this?
Yeah.
Why? What is to gain from this? But he also understood what the gain is and think like, there's got to be another way instead of me having to suffer. You know what I mean? And you think about this so too, and you could say that though too, because why at the end of the day, he is our Father Almighty, right? So you should be able to say that, man, there's got to be another way for me to gain without me having to suffer. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Why? Because in that gain, in that suffering is where your faith increases. Man, my faith has increased so much. Like I'm telling you, man, the shit that I went through, that I chose to go through, at the end of the day, it was my decision. All right. But it's sad too, like God brought me back stronger, you know, better than ever. You know what I mean? And so, but through that, you know, people either can just fall off. Like, you know what? I'm just going to be over here with these bad habits and where the devil likes to hang out.
It's comfortable there.
It's comfortable. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy. But versus going over here and through the struggle, like where I've never felt such peace in my life by being this side, you know, by being on this side. I felt so much stress. I always say too, I never felt anxiety. It's BS, man. There's times where there were sleepless nights, you know, and I hung out in this area thinking I could try to fix it myself and do all this stuff. And now there can be some similar like entrepreneur situations over here. I'm like, I ain't true. God's got it. Because why? Actually, Cody Sanchez said this one time in this quick little reel. She's like, when you doubt, you are literally practicing atheism. I mean, I was like, when she said that, I'm like, man, not only does this chick speak with conviction, but like, you know, and she brings up a very valid point that if I don't say, you know what, it's going to come through. It's going to come through. And by doing that, it's not practicing atheism. But when I doubt, so when I have my conversations with God, like, man, tell me what's supposed to happen then. If this is your will and I'm doing all these right things, then tell me what's supposed to happen. Show me, please. You know, and at that point, it isn't practicing atheism because it isn't practicing doubt. It's like, I already did these things, so then tell me what is supposed to happen. It's not doubt. All right, man, then show me. If I'm doing it wrong, all right, then show me. You know?
And so how does God speak to you? Is it through other people? I mean, is it a whisper in your ear?
It is, man. It's the for real, like the whispers in the ear of gratitude. The little, like the gratitude, man. Like 2 days ago, getting my girls, taking them to, my wife had an appointment and taking the girls to school, and there are my 2 little ones right there, just getting in the truck, jackets on, you know, belly's full of food, ready. They're amped up, ready to go to school. And now I'm walking, I got my bags. I'm like, thank you, God. Just that whisper of like, hey, dude, go start your day off right.
Mhm.
Because they're right there getting jacked for the day. You know what I mean? So it's those little whispers that come in. And there's also those times though too where I like to call them like pop-ups, kind of like spam, not like spam, but in a good way, where all of a sudden like you didn't intend to be this disciple of God that day, but it came to fruition. And I've been doing a real good job upon my complete pivot of faith, where now I use my company in my meetings, in my one-on-ones, where I bring up God, faith. And I used to apologize ahead of time. Like a couple of years ago, I used to apologize, like, not to sound all churchy, is what I used to say, not to sound all churchy. You know what I mean? I used to drop in like, Bible verses and all sorts of stuff. And now it's just like, now I don't even apologize anymore.
Mhm.
Like, hey man, if it's God's will, it's God's will. You know what I was talking about though too in our meeting first thing of the year was, guys, some of your guys' success, was intentional, and some of it was just God's plan. I no longer apologize when talking about my faith in my company or others.
How's that transition been for? I mean, you've hired new people.
Mhm.
Some of your people are. I mean, a lot of your company, 1099 or
Yeah.
buying it.
Yeah.
This construction company typically, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that like? Because I mean, that's still a little bit different. They're not
It
true employees.
they're not true employees. So I do have my direct employees, and I also have like the 1099 as you said. But the culture we have, man, is like no other. And the people that we used to have that would, where the toxicity in the culture, are gone and gotten rid of. Dude, when my mom came in to bless the new office, like, man, if you ever had like a Mexican mother's blessing, dude, it is something, man. It is powerful. It gave me chills when we were done, and my mother prayed for me. Everybody was out of the office. You know what I mean? And then she even said, though, too, in that prayer, get rid of those people that bring my son and this business harm. And they were gone. They're gone. And I was hesitant. I was fearful of them leaving. I really was, man. I was really fearful of them leaving. Like, I can't let this fail, God. I need them. I need them. I don't need them. You need me. Let go. So I did. And upon, letting them go, brought in this new wave of culture. And they come to the meetings. They're not supposed to attend the meetings. They come willingly to the meetings. And because they're orchestrated differently, presented, they're given value. And every time in my meeting, I bring in God in some shape or form. And I used to apologize for that. But my culture is completely wildly different, man. It's awesome. It's a huge blessing. It really is. And a lot of the too, at the end of the day, also has a lot to do with my leadership. I used to allow them to get away with things back in the day, thinking it was going to strengthen the relationship, and instead it ended up just stabbing me in the back. Like kind of like that Ben David said, like, just say you got out hustled, stop playing the victim. You got out hustled. Yeah, that's true. Facts, man. I got out hustled, And now it's like, as they understand the repercussions of their actions and understand accountability and the mentorship that I have in our one-on-ones consistently with our one-on-ones, it's completely different. And I tell you, it's awesome, man. I got a cross in my office. You know what I mean? I got these 2 candles my mother gave me that I light up every first of the month that says, one's money, one's protection. And I pray in those moments. And I do it when and I do it not when not because no one's in the office. I don't want to be interrupted. It's not because I'm shy. Hell, I've actually had the candles lit and I forgot they were still lit. They're like, hey, those candles are still on, boss. I'm like, oh, shoot.
Hey, burn up.
Yeah, exactly. And like, but I do it so I can have peace. So I can be like, it's complete silence. I'm praying in my office, and just allows me to be one with God in that moment.
Peace be still.
Peace be still. Amen, dude. Exactly. Peace be still. And, when I'm at the house, I'm grateful and I'm thankful. But when I'm in my office, it's my time with God. It's quiet. Even the lights are off except for my office light. But it's a different environment. It's a different feel. And, last year I even got this cross on my arm. It's funny though, too, the reason I got influenced by this, we were at the men's breakfast and there was a kid that had the 3 nails clothing sweater. And I was like, man, that's badass. That's cool. So we were in Vegas and got a Vegas tattoo. If you're in Vegas, you got to get one of those, right? Well, I didn't get one that I regretted. And I got this one to walk with me. I got this to walk with me. And it's gotten to the point where I'm no longer, as Pastor Craig said in last week's message, is like, I'm Christian-ish. I am Christian. You know what I mean? I am. Can't say that I'm not. Am I still human? Absolutely. Am I going to make mistakes? You bet. Is he going to redeem me of those every time I ask him to? 100%. He's going to give me grace. And I talk about grace all the time at work. I talk about grace in general. But I talk about grace to people on a 1-800 number. You're like, hey, you were late for this appointment. I'm like, no, ma'am, as a matter of fact, I called and already did this part. Sounds like someone didn't do their job. And she's like, oh my goodness. I go, I'm just messing with you, ma'am. Just give yourself some grace and some pencils up and erasers. And she's like, wow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And unintentional, my oldest daughter's name is Grace. And it's Olivia Grace. And I think it's perfect. It really is. Because I never thought that, going back to Life Church consistently, because my wife started going, or had us going like 4 or 5 years ago. And it wasn't until like the year before we met, the year before that, where I was going consistently. Now when I tell people at Life Church, I've been going consistently now for 2 years. There's a guy I met at the gym. The guy's name's Austin. He saw my black baptism shirt that I wore when my son got baptized at Life Church. And he's like, you go to Life Church? I go, yeah. And he's like, how you been going? I go, I say consistently 2 years. Consistently 2 years. Because I think that's kind of like when you think about like Thomas Stone, I go, that's consistently, and I want to be true. I don't want to be this fake person that says, oh, I've been going to church all my life. And I could say that, hell, I've been going to church all my life if we're including the Lutheran church times back in the day. I didn't get anything out of it. But it wasn't until 2 years that I got to this point. And I'm 100% grateful for that.
Yeah, and I definitely relate to the conviction that Hispanic grandparents, have. And my grandmother's Colombian and just devout Catholic, but she never shared it with us. She never felt like it was like, if we asked, she was open about it. But every night, seeing her over in the corner, with a rosary and doing it, I never understood. I still don't understand it, but relating now where I'm at in my faith to the conviction that she had of just like, I've figured out that she was constantly praying for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I believe that woman freaking put a shield around us. I was an idiot.
Dude, you damn right she did, man. She did, and even with my grandmother to this day, and she's still alive, thank you God for that. And my mother, those two spiritual angels that are in my life, you know what I mean? Like, I'm 40 years old, man. I still need my mom. Like, hey, mom, help me navigate through this right now. This is what's going on. And she'll pray for it. She's like, all right, sometimes she'll message me. You want to talk about God's calling, man. Sometimes she'll just message me like, excuse me. And she'll be like, you okay? Hey, how did you know? You know what I mean? Like, how did you know? And she's like, the Lord told me. I'm praying for you right now. And you feel that too, man. When we leave, when we go on, on a trip or vacation and my mother blesses me, like I feel it, dude. She always said this though too, growing up. And I say this now too, like, Lord, send a multitude of angels to watch over and protect my son and his family and all this stuff. And I said though too, when I leave and I'm leaving my family behind, Lord, please send a multitude of angels to watch over and protect them, please. And that Hispanic culture though too, man, it's powerful, man. It's real. And I had my grandmother bless my son when we were in Dallas because I wanted him to feel it.
Mm.
Like, did you feel it? Like, he goes, Dad, I never felt more. An 11-year-old saying that, And it's so funny. There's a huge language barrier between my son and my grandmother, right? And his great grandmother. And he goes, you know what's crazy, Dad, is it? I mean, I understand Tita. I can understand Tita. You know what I mean? Like he feels that presence. And a part of that Catholicism though too, in the Hispanic culture is huge. But the biggest thing that comes out of it is the benediction, right? And I remember I started implementing that in my family. My wife's like, we're not Catholics. I go, it's not about Catholicism. It's about the blessing at the end of the night and at the beginning of the day that we give to each other as family members. And that's what we do now every night, man. And sometimes I'll do it on purpose. Like, all right, kids, love you. I'm going to snap. Dad, the blessing. You know what I mean? Like, all right, yeah. You know,
I had that moment last night because, you know, not great about praying with them every single night. Sometimes they fall asleep on the couch and stuff and whatever. But last night, my 4-year-old daughter, it's our youngest, I go to sit down and start eating, and she comes over and says, wait, Dad, you need to pray. And I'm at first I was like, yeah, I pray when I, you know, do my own. I don't need you telling me. And then that for me was, no, God's using my kids to speak to me about what I should already be doing.
right.
And so I came and she's like, here, I'll pray with you. And so prayed with her. And then she went up, I got home, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So she fell asleep on the couch and all my kids were, you know, watching TV. And so I carried her up to bed. And well, first my 14-year-old daughter picked her up to go carry her to bed. And I said, do you want me to grab her? And she's like, no, that's okay. My 4-year-old reached out, like in eyes still closed, grabbed me. And I was, man, like, this is what I pray for. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and go to bring her up to bed. And I, you know, lay her in bed and tuck her in. I was like, all right, good night. I love you. And she's sleeping. So I didn't think she was even awake. She's like, wait, you pray with me. It was like in dead sleep. She's still,
Yeah.
and it seriously brings you to tears.
It's awesome, dude. Like my wife, man, and that's awesome, dude, because, and make it consistent though too, bro, because it feels good. So my wife was actually the first one that started nightly prayers, just something simple and something just, you know, it's like my wife can rap 16 bars, just something. And she came up, you know what I mean? Kind of expect an Irish woman that came out of Coleridge, Nebraska to come up with some stuff, right? Like that, you know, but she just came up, you know, with this prayer for them that has been so consistent that they're like, Ma, I forgot to do the prayer. You know, like, Ma, you've been summoned. You know what I mean? You know, and then she'll come in and she'll do the prayer with them.
Same call.
Same prayer, man. Same exact prayer every single time.
So she is Catholic.
I know.
I grew up Catholic. I would make the joke.
You know, but like, you know, it's just that consistency, man, that consistency, you know, that your kids see it. And we go to church, we take them to church with us. And every time when we leave church, you know, mind you, they're the life kids. And, you know, as we used to call it, like Bible school is how we used to call it back in the day when we would get dropped off. Right. I asked them, what'd you learn? You know, what'd you learn? And then just hearing it, you know, organically. All right, before you guys started having fun and playing games, what did you guys learn? And hearing that as we're leaving the parking lot, okay, cool. Why? Because I want them to understand that when they're there, the same way us as adults, we want to validate the message that we heard, right? You know, for us as adults, we can comprehend and validate the message right there and then and know we walked away full. But we at the same time, until we still have kids, and be like, all right, cool. I know you registered that last part was fun, and I want you to understand too, the message is also fun, but what was the message? What did you get out of it? And my 11-year-old son, he's starting to join us during the actual like adult service. So he doesn't always go to like I think it's the loop is what it is for us, you know, at Life Church. And so I don't know if you go to Life Church.
I go City Light.
Okay. And so he sits there and then I ask him too, son, what did you learn? And they'll tell me like, all right, dude, that. But the only time we don't have us with them is where they go into like, when they say like, this is the time you should send your kids because they're going to go into adult raw content. Then we'll send them out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's funny you mention that. So the last time that happened, our kids were with us, and so sent them to life kids, and we listened to them. I'm like, oh, feel this. I mean, they're like 9 and 10 at the time. I'm like, I'd find that. I mean,
right?
You know, like there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know. Sometimes I think we protect our kids too much. You guys are getting,
and we do, and we really do. I don't necessarily too that we shield them. It's also one of those things though too. I think I think I see it on a church standpoint though too. Like, hey, we don't want to put these parents in a position where they now have to discuss something that wasn't part of your plan to discuss right now.
Right.
And I think maybe saying that,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to get into some sense of content that you don't want your kids here.
Yeah.
Says, hey, we're getting into some sense of content. Get your kids out of here.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Mm.
Like, because you're like, what's sex about? Oh man, I wasn't even trying to have this conversation with you right now, man. Like, we're 2 years early. You know?
Yeah.
That's true too.
they're going to find out one way or another. I guess, and that's, if they're 5 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely real too. But when they get to, like you said, threshold like 9, 11, everything else like that, I remember I did the same thing too, where it was like summer at the movies and it was a message about Aretha Franklin and they were playing that movie. I'm like, talk about how, she was raped and all sorts of stuff. I'm like, dude, maybe you should, you know what I mean? And, stuff like that. Yeah.
Actually, there's a friend of ours that we picked up a piece of furniture from her, and she was telling me about I think it's a Christian-based movie review system for parents. Like I'll have to find it, but
I use it all the time.
yeah, I started using that a lot because we want to watch PG-13 movies. I don't want to watch Minions over and over again.
Right.
So but when we watch that, it's like we were talking earlier about Scandal, right? And I want to segue this into actually what I was going to talk about, but Scandal. I remember the first time we watched it, it was early on in my wife and I's relationship, and we watched it, it was just hooked to that and How to Get Away with Murder and all those ABC, dramas. And it's just crazy because it wraps you in. And then we went to go rewatch one of those, probably about 6 months ago, and it just felt dirty.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't watch it. I was like, God, like there's so much, homosexuality and just negativity and stuff, and it's just, I couldn't do it. And granted, I got baptized about a year or two ago, and so I've noticed those changes. And the segue I want to get into is the garbage in, garbage out, because I think that with us listening to audiobooks and podcasts and reading books and opening the Bible and all these things, we're putting the good stuff in. It's like if you were eating candy and cheeseburgers all day every day, like you're going to get negative out.
Right.
And I've noticed it more with my kids, like, as far as protecting them. I think sometimes we unconsciously don't talk to them about things thinking that they can't comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed now is like they comprehend a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
And even the subtle things that, like, I've had my younger kids watching Minnow during the day instead of watching a cartoon. And Minnow is, Christian-based Bible stories and all that stuff. And I was telling my wife about something during my day and something happened, and my 5-year-old comes up and he's like, oh, like the Sadducees and Pharisees. And I was like,
that's cool.
Where'd that come? Yeah. But so we've tried to, incorporate that stuff because now we have, 14-year-old, we have an 18-year-old, and, sharing stuff that's real world struggles so that they see, like, we don't have it all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids learn that eventually, when they get to that 15, 16-year-old range, they start to learn that, oh, maybe mom and dad don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They let us know. So if we're open and honest about it and we can show them the things that we're doing to try and correct mistakes and stuff. And I've tried to be more intentional, not very good at it either, but with apologizing to my kids. Sometimes I'm short with them, or sometimes I rush them off, going back and recognizing that I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to get your opinion on the garbage in, garbage out, as far as especially biblical content.
What do you mean? So kind of like expand on that a little bit.
So, I mean, as how important it is to consume good stuff. Like we like to watch entertainment and stuff. And one conviction that my wife and I have had recently is with this, Blake Lively stuff going on. It's like, where in the Bible does it exclude adultery from actors?
Right.
But when they're doing these intimate scenes and all this,
right,
I see that as adultery. So we just don't consume those things.
Right.
And, with Angel Studios and all those things, I've been trying to only consume good content rather than, the ABC and the stuff that I believe that the devil has his hand in those productions.
Right. So garbage in, garbage out. I'm not saying you have to have an equal percentage of both, but you need to. And the reason being too, but obviously the belief in one needs to surpass the other, right? But obviously there's certain things we don't allow our kids to see. And us as adults, man, we just process like, I get what you're saying as adultery. I'm like, it's just another pornographic scene, and they're like, yeah, whatever, let it fly. Obviously the kids can't see it, right? Because the story in the movie is like too good to like, that sex scene that was in there, like, okay, cool. All right. Well, who would have thought she would have done that? You know what I mean? Like, okay, moving on. But the garbage in, garbage out, we have to also understand that the devil is out there. The same reason why, I don't necessarily believe in like, I'll come around to that. It's like homeschooling your kids. Why? They need to understand that evil works, that evil is out there. They need to understand that when those things are those real life scenarios, because if you're just only good in, do you know what I mean? And there's no bad in, how do you expect your kids to understand when the bad comes in and how to comprehend and do and how to let good dilute the darkness? You know what I mean? The darkness in the water. They have to understand the power of the good to dilute this and put the light, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you're just giving all this stuff of good, like, hey, something bad just happened. What the heck was that about? Well, okay, let me teach you this life lesson.
Yeah,
The
way I see it is the stuff if you're consuming garbage, then your mindset is going to be garbage back to other people. And if you're, consuming positive content, you're going to be a little bit more patient and have more grace and stuff like that. And so, I mean, with the kids in their developmental years, we try as much as we can to make sure they're consuming good stuff. And, my 13-year-old son, he, when he starts playing too many video games and shooting stuff and stuff, he just gets aggressive.
Yeah.
And so I see that as he's consuming garbage. And so his attitude is crap. And so, just, I agree with not shielding them from things. Yeah. They do need to understand that the devil.
Sounds like your kid has a competitive spirit more than anything else. You know what I mean? Because when I hear that, I'm like, because I got the same though too. Like, if I'm playing like Battlefield with my kid, I'm like, damn, man. You know what I mean? But it's
but like he'll go over to his friend's house and spend the night, and he's not sleeping over there. He's playing Fortnite all night. Right. He'll come back and start picking on his siblings and just start picking fights or talking back and stuff like that. And we're like, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
It's consuming all of this negativity and stuff,
But think about that though too, man. How many times have has God sent you out there in the wilderness and you messed up and you came back with that negativity and God said, hey, knock it off. Same thing with your kid. Like, and that's another too we can't help, man, because the garbage that we can't control is when they're out at school.
Yeah.
Or when they're out in everyday life with their friends. We can try to control, like, hey, why don't you gain some more friends from Life Church? We all know that's not a reality. You know what I mean? They're going to make some bad decisions as they get older. So there's only so much garbage that we can actually control. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I get though too the content you allow in your home. Like, hey, we don't let the kids watch this. We put a time limit on that. 100%. Those are the things we control. We allow a little bit of this garbage in. Literally what we tolerate as garbage, a lot of the consumers understand that, hey, this isn't everyday life. And it's too where, when I allow when our daughters go do like a sleepover at their aunt and my mom's like, they do a sleepover over there, we know damn well there ain't no structure. There's no discipline. It's Nana, may I, can I, and Auntie Wendy, can I, like, oh, anything you want, baby, anything you want. So then the next day when we get them, like, oh man, what kind of hellions did you get us back into? You know what I mean? And it's within like about an hour of course correction.
Like I noticed it. She watched Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
You watch that show?
Yeah.
I didn't watch it. I watched a couple episodes and she watched the whole thing, just binge watched it. And I just noticed her behavior and mannerisms got more aggressive. She was swearing a lot more and stuff. And I was like for me, it was a realization of like the stuff that we're consuming. So, but I really like the perspective of like, we can't shield all of it. Like we need to know how to consume garbage and output positivity.
Like he said, like in that book of One More, man, when you talk about like, when you find yourself in that moment and be able to say like, oh, I got to take a step back. And my wife sees it too. Like I have an addictive personality. So in the environment that I'm in, like all of a sudden, if I'm like increasing my cussing, she's like, hey, you've been increasing your cussing a lot. Like, oh, I haven't, because there's also doubt. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm all right. And then you realize like, oh yeah, she's right. You know what I mean? So you scale it back. Same thing with Schwartz too, where you're like, you're consuming, you're watching this and you're watching this and you're watching that. And you're like, hey babe, mind chilling out just a little bit? You know what I mean? Like, and then there's that self-realization. But you have those, you and your wife and with your kids, you're allowed to also check yourselves, allow you to check one another though too. Like, hey, chill out with that. You know what I mean? That's not how we're supposed to do right now.
Well, my wife has an absolute chameleon personality. Like she's Hawaiian, Puerto Rican, And so if she gets around Hispanic people, like granted, I mean, most people mistake her for Mexican, more than Hawaiian.
Right.
She doesn't look like a stereotypical Hawaiian. But when she's around, Latinos, she'll have a little bit more of a different way of speaking. When she's around people that are Hawaiian, she speaks more pidgin, which is like broken English. Someone in this, if we spend time down south, she's got a southern twang. She lived in the sticks of Florida for a while, and she picked up this twang. So she has that chameleon, already in her. And so I've just noticed how much more that happens with me. Like if I'm consuming something that's not positive, then I'm going to be a little bit shorter with my kids, and so if we are the average of the people that we surround ourselves with, then I've always believed this, since getting into podcasts. If I'm surrounding myself every single day with podcasts about, how to better myself and all that stuff, then I'm going to be able to output more, which I think that when at your core, if the number one person you're surrounding yourself with is Jesus, then you're going to have a lot better output.
Oh, 100%.
And it can suppress all that other negativity, because I spend more of my hours with him than I do with this TV show.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about touching on dating earlier. I watched something a couple of days ago about what them and intrigued me. So this guy's $600-700 million net worth, all are the Yankees, well on his way to be a multi-billionaire. He's like, I haven't listened to the radio since 2003. So over 20 years, he's only consumed podcasts, audiobooks. What's the book, 33 Laws of whatever? He's like, I listened to that book on repeat for 3 years. Like, same book.
Which one? Which one's that?
It's, he wrote 48 Laws of Power.
Oh.
3.
Something Green.
Yeah.
Robert Greene. Robert Greene, yeah.
So, I don't know, 33 something. I don't know what it is. Except for 3 years, he just listened to that book, or 2 years, and listened to that book over and over and over again. But just to get his mindset, basically it's a modern day, what's the, foreign porn.
Yeah.
So it's more,
Yeah.
but same premise of the book. And yeah, so like getting your mind in that mentality, upset that I can't think of something.
But that's all he did was just listen to so no music at all whatsoever.
No, nothing. He said, if you got in the car, he didn't care who you were. That's what you're listening to.
I've noticed it in patterns, like when I think it was the 2016 election that I really got into, and I was watching the news 24/7, and I had anxiety constantly. My work was stressful, all this stuff, but I was just not a good person, and all I'm consuming is garbage and drama and, hyping up things. And I do think it's important to stay, aware of what's going on in the world.
I was going to say that,
but it becomes obsessive.
I think people are like, oh, I don't watch politics. I don't like politics or whatever. But I think politics drives your world more than you realize. Like, if you're a business person, political decisions are affecting you, what they're doing is affecting the school that your kids go to. Your driving, your taxes. Like, there's so much more. Like, you don't have to be consumed by it, but I think you need to be aware of it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things,
Fox or MSNBC or something.
Yeah.
Religiously 24/7 is probably a good idea.
And I think that's where I was at.
And mine, like, can't I do to sponsor this podcast. I forgot, on his website, one of his websites, they have an AI news thing. Basically, it scrapes all the data of all the news throughout the world and puts it on that AI news. And so you can just get the
be a bridge version of what's going on.
And then you can click on it and go into the article and actually results.
Yeah.
But I'll give you like the top 10 things that's trending right now. And it's just, it's not like it.
And I'm all for like learning and self-improvement, man. But imagine also a life without music.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if I could, dude. A life without. It's just, yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying that.
Or you listen to like something while working out, or, I think when people tell me that they listen to I've tried listening to podcasts or, you know, an audiobook
while working out.
while lifting or working out. The only time, dude, like, you know, it's like it doesn't, I don't see it working.
But I mean,
Do you? But like for me, I'll do it if I'm on the treadmill and I'm cooling down after the workout, if I'm going to do that. But while I'm like lifting weights, you know, and everything else that goes along with it, like the stuff I'm listening to, well, I guess if we were talking about it, it'd be considered garbage in. I don't know. It's pretty dope stuff I listen to. You know what I mean? But like, it's just good fun. It's just food for the soul at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It's good music for you. You know what I mean? Or however you want to listen to. I don't know if I could just do it. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if I can do podcasts while lifting. I can do podcasts while like, you know, like while I'm just, you know, doing the steps or on the treadmill. Yeah, I could do those things. I could totally do audio and just listen in and then not get consumed with what's on the TVs in front of me. But like while actually like lifting weights and everything else, I can't see myself, you know, hearing Pat Ben David while I'm trying to get 2 more, 3 more, 4. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it hurts me from the standpoint of it. My workout suffers. Because, so I'll be working out. When you're actually lifting, I can't pay attention to it. But this teaches about how rooms are on the other side. My office is on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So like, this is kind of where I live during the day. And so I'll be working out, watching something. It'll give me an idea of spark some. And so I'll run to my computer and I'll start typing something. And,
Nice.
and then like 10 minutes later, then I go back to it definitely hinders from time to time.
Right.
but I think there's a lot of truth, and DJs know this really well about the beats per minute and how it affects your physiology. And I think that all comes down to the vibrations and everything, you know, all this hippy dippy stuff, that there's a lot of truth to it because you feel different depending on what music you're listening to. And I agree. I mean, I listen to heavy metal and I'll listen to, you know, some bands that have been considered satanic and stuff like that, which I don't think they're truly satanic, but I think that
it's just a gamut.
Staged. Yeah.
I get into that though too, man.
I would love to dig deep into that because I struggle with that. But I think if that's true, then, you know, while I'm working out, I want to listen to something fast paced and heavier, and, you know, because it gets me more intense. And just seeing how you get all amped up, it's the football locker room feeling, of getting all amped up before a game and stuff like that. And I think it's true in every little thing that we're doing.
Road rage earlier. So I got a story about Cobra Chinger and road rage. This years ago, 20 years ago, I was with a buddy. We were driving. Traffic was horrible. And I was listening to an Eminem song. We had, you know, man CDs for the thing. And I'm like just yelling, screaming.
You got this bravado.
Dude, it's like, you need to chill, turn this off.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite songs is Third Eye Blind. It's called Motorcycle Drive By. I don't think it was on the radio. It was, you know, on one of their CDs. And I put that on that CD. And it's like really slow and like, you know, I mean, there's like it kind of ebbs and flows. But put that on, and my whole personality changed just from going from whatever it was, and then Lose Yourself to Third Eye Blind, Motorcycle. Like, it was just like two different people, just from different beat, different all that stuff.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. So
it gets dark, man. There are some songs. So for instance, as we talk about like satanic, dude, like, let's just say my poor sister, she's 10 years older than me. She was the canary in the cave. You know what I mean? Growing up too. And obviously she was born in 74. So she lived through the 80s, and obviously talking about tapes and hard metal and then parental advisories and got all popular in that time. But like, you know, she loves Iron Maiden. And she's a firm believer in God. Dude, I love Iron Maiden. And one of my favorite songs from Iron Maiden, but the reason I love Iron Maiden is the music, the rhythm, like how it accelerates. Not to mention, you know, the lead singer has by far one of the most amazing vocals ever. You know, and it's the number of the song is called Number of the Beast. How it begins like, the number of the beast, his number is 666. You know what I mean? But I don't go in. You know, he's just quoting. That's all. He's just quoting scripture. But those guys don't follow that. You know what I mean? They'll have it as a ploy as far as their stuff. but it's just good music.
Mhm.
But what's funny is that I don't go down a dark path when I listen to Iron Maiden or Ace of Spades, Megadeth, all those guys, Metallica, all those guys. I don't go into that spiral of like darkness. But there's like one song, like it was a band called Chevelle, and their song's called Red. That thing gets dark for me, dude. I'm like, whoa, man, hold on, what am I thinking about? So I changed the song. But like those music, so too, like that type of music, it is all just like a gimmick, like it is in wrestling. Every character has their own gimmick.
Right.
But I'm gonna tell you this too on the story, and I'll wrap it up on my end, is where my mother during that time, during that era, I remember I was like 6 or 7. My sister had this leather suitcase, this brown leather suitcase of all like these tapes, these cassettes, Iron Maiden. You saw like the the pentagrams, or you would see the Anarchy and Antichrist, all those things. You see it all in these tapes, and she had Metallica posters like on her wall, along with the unicorns that are like in lightning form. You know what I mean? And my mother during that time was like super. I wouldn't say Catholic, but man, she was super strict with religion and what we could and cannot listen to, and that to her was deemed satanic. All that music was deemed satanic. And I remember one time, and we joked about this to this day. I remember one time, all of a sudden, the suitcase disappeared. My sister's brown leather suitcase of all these cassette tapes that she had collected, and we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. So when she was able to scrape some money together, she would go buy a tape and listen to it. One day it was gone. We were living in Browns. One day the suitcase just disappeared. I was just like, what the hell happened to it? This is that. 10 years ago, we were just like having a family meet and just a meal like we do. We try to do family gatherings as often as we can. And one time I brought up like, hey, Mom, did you get rid of Wendy's suitcase of all satanic music? And she goes, I did. I threw it away in the dumpster at these apartments we were living at. And I was like, and I looked at my sister. She was like, I knew it. You know what I mean? And my sister was just like the entire day, like, I can't believe that woman threw that away. Because, I mean, if you think about it, though, too, if she would have still held that to this day, yeah, I don't know.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know. Would be worth that as far as, you know what I mean? But that has value, But at that time, it's funny how your mentality and your spirituality changed, because at that time you deemed it as satanic music. And now we just label it as music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My mother's completely changed. Like I said, dude, my sister was the poor canary in the cave. Like we had two different parenting, we had two different experiences of my mother as parenting goes, and so, but yeah, I don't think that stuff as garbage in, man. I guess it's what you do with the garbage. You know what I mean?
I think that's great.
I think it's what you do with the garbage, but
again, I think it comes down to you spend more time in your walk than you do in that kind of influence.
You walk more in the light than you do in the dark. So when you're in the dark, I'm like, all right, where's the switch?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's the switch? I got to get out of it.
And you know how to get back.
Yeah, exactly.
Know what the darkness is. So I used to listen to a lot of Jeff Bill Williams podcasts, and he did one like on a book called, I think it's called Rape 19, and then he did one on the massacre that the U.S. did in Vietnam on, killing a whole bunch of people. And seeing the Nazis and Holocaust and what's the Victor Frankl's book? We talked about his life.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning. So reading those books and being familiar with them and knowing the darkness and knowing that there's darkness. Because if you sit there and you just hide from it all the time, when it hits you, it's going to hit you hard, kind of like you're saying. So be familiar with it. Know that it's there. Know, like you don't have to walk with it. Well, be familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the enemy I know. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to the spirit of discernment. Is, as I get further along in my faith, I don't know why. I just have this, I can tell when someone truly does walk with the Lord and someone who just claims to.
Yeah.
And, I was experiencing this in my family where, someone reached out and said, oh, I've been praying. It just, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
You can say it and it's not my place to judge. Like, your walk is your walk, my walk's mine. But there's people like influencers that I'll watch and just the words that they're using and how they talk and stuff. It's like, I can tell that you don't have God in your life, you know, and not that I'm talking to them, but just, so I might be a little bit more careful about certain things that they're encouraging, because you do need to have your own level of discernment and know that, okay, they might be extremely knowledgeable about financial stuff, and I'll take that grain of salt, but I'm going to spin it in a way that's influenced by God.
Yeah. It's that open gesture stuff too. And dude, I think at one point, you know, during our walks of faith and how we got here, we were all open gesture Christians. Like, oh man, I'll pray for you. I'll have a number 7. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, you're not. You know, and so now I know when I see someone on social media that I know personally is struggling, you know what I mean? I'll message them directly like, hey man, I just want you to know, it's not that, you know, praying for you. It's, I did pray for you. Like, hey, I wanted you to know God's watching, man. I just want you to know I did pray for you. You know, I pray that everything comes out okay. I pray that, you know, you get to either, you know, bring your baby home or whatever the circumstance is, you know, I let them know that I did pray. Not that prayers for you, or like you see those comments like open gesture, open gesture, open gesture, open gesture. It's all bullshit. You know what I mean? No one believes you. What's bad is that you believe yourself more than anything else. You know what I mean? And you think that comment you just said, hey, prayers for you and your family, you thought that was enough? You know what I mean? So that to me is like we talk about those open gestures. Like we say, hey man, if you need anything, no man, you let me know. Why don't you narrow it down? You know what I mean? Like, hey man, if you need help moving the couch, let me know. Hey, I need to borrow $1,000. I ain't got it. Well, you said anything. You said anything. You know, I think that's where I know that I've also perfected and gotten better, is that if I say I'm going to pray for you, I did it. You know what I mean? I meant it. And I shut everything else down and I pray for you. You know, and then if it's someone that we know within our family, not only did I already pray for you, but my family did too at the end of the night. We did it. So a friend of ours, also someone that helped us get started, you know, in the contractor business many years ago, just suffered an aneurysm. And I cried for this dude because he was more than just a contractor. He was a friend. He was someone that I invited into my home, someone I invited to also bring his kids to celebrate my kids' birthday. You know what I mean? Someone that I always talk to and everything else. And man, we prayed for him. My kids prayed for him because they knew him too. Hey, you know, and at the end of the prayer, like, and also we prayed for so-and-so to come home, you know, and with his family. Sure enough, man, he's with his family. That's all God's work. Because on how I heard how he ended up at the hospital, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to him and his family? Like this is that, you know, and we don't just, you know, open gesture this prayer. We need it, man. Because there's a tremendous amount of power in that prayer. And I've seen miracles, man. I've seen miracles. I went through one, but I've seen more miracles in my sister's like health as God has continued to help navigate her on her health and why she's still here to this day. So I've seen that, man. I believe, you know, 100%. Prayer is everything, dude. You know, worry about nothing, pray about everything. So my mom said all my life. And I used to think those two growing up, like, all right, whatever, you know, but it's actual facts.
Well, and I think part of that discernment too is the devil knows the Bible better than we do. And so he will manipulate it and contort it, and he will speak through people and, you know, oh, God wanted me to tell you, or God wanted this to happen. And you see it a lot in cults. They manipulate the word of God. And it's like, well, I mean, God did say that in the Bible, but he didn't mean it in that way, you know? And so it's having that discernment to know the difference.
Imagine if that book I told you about, you know, reading Paul and Hill, I Win the Devil.
Yeah, I love that one. That's a really good one. Yeah.
It's relatively unknown book, but Napoleon Hill wrote it in like 1938.
And the family published it like,
It wasn't published for like 2011.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like it was set on the shelf. But really good book, talks about a lot, but like the premise of it was the devil came to Napoleon Hill in a dream and he asked him a ton of questions. And so it's like the devil's perspective on the world.
Yeah.
And it was eerie.
Are you talking about the one where he recorded, like, if I was the devil, I would do this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, that thing is freaky, man. My buddy had me, like, she listened to it. And, like, if I was the devil and, like, everything that is happening in society right freaking now, man.
It's to a T.
Scary, dude.
Brad Lee actually just did a video where he asked ChatGPT, he's like, if you were the devil, what would you do to try and suppress my success or something like that? And just listed like self-doubt. I would give you struggles that you feel like you can't come back with, like all these things. And it was like, oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy, dude? Like you give I remember too when I listened to it. How do I put this too? It felt dark.
It is definitely,
It felt dark.
and that's why I brought it up, because you're talking about, dark, like, it's in the dark, but it does feel like it's, to me, breaking into societal today. Mind you, this was written 85 years ago.
Yeah.
When you put it in society today, you're like, that's exactly
How
a lot of what's happening.
a lot of it's played out. Like, man, like I'm not just talking like small percentages, like a large percentage of like that's what's going down. You know what I mean? And it is. And I remember when I was listening to it too, I kept repeating it to myself like as I was asleep. And I'm like, if I was the devil, I would, I was like, whoa, chill out, dude. Stop. You know what I mean? Like that's how dark it felt. And obviously, when he wrote it and when he recorded it, it was kind of like one of those like those Conjuring movies you hear in the tape or like, you know what I mean? You kind of like, you're like, oh shit, there's a lot of fucking nasty stuff in this thing. You know what I mean? But that true? It's scary, man. The devil is alive, and the devil wants to consume your good. Those are absolute facts. That's why
there's one from Angel Studios too. I can't remember what the name of this actor using Yellowstone. He's like striking blue eyes, like white hair. I can't remember his name. I'll show you a picture after. But he plays the devil in this movie, and this guy was, sitting at a dinner table. I've seen clips. I haven't seen the movie. But he's sitting at the dinner table and he's just like, I messed up, like, and he's just praying, and devil's just sitting there like, are you praying right now? Like, God doesn't want you. And he's just sitting there like telling him he's a piece of,
yeah.
And it's like, that is literally how it is. It's like the devil maybe not sitting, this close, but he's right here all the time waiting to tell you how.
And but he's with the weak though too. My mom once told me, she was trying to quote it, if it was like a storyline or something, or possibly an old Mexican tale where it's like, the devil's not going to come to you because he's going to be like, I know you. I ain't going to mess with you. But this one right here, that's a little...
You need to bring him back on.
Little Christian-ish. That's an easy target. I'm going to go, yeah, I know you, so I ain't going to mess with you. You know what I mean? But this one, I'm going to pray. This one, I'm going to consume. That's how I feel though, too. That's where it's funny, man. My family, when they're like in the house, like they hear noises, if I can just get real or raw, and I've already said some stuff in here, but like where they're like, did you hear that? I go, man, ain't shit in here. You know why I know it's not? Because the devil knows who I am. And the devil knows who we are. He's not coming around here. Don't worry, don't be manifesting that stuff, because I do believe when you manifest, that does invite the devil in. 100%. When you manifest that stuff and you truly believe what goes bump in the night, and you believe it and you manifest that energy, as we talk about that negative energy towards that pot of rice, you will invite that stuff into your home.
Right.
But when you say, I rebuke you, you ain't coming in my house. You're not allowed in my house. Matter of fact, get the fuck out, because you can't take me. You won't beat me. I've already allowed you to try to beat me up, and I beat you back. You ain't coming back. Ain't nothing happening in my house. I'm not going to allow you to do anything to my family either, because I will come get you, and I won't allow it, And so when the devil says, man, I know you, but you're saying you fear God, but you respect the devil. So I'm not going to taunt him either. I'm not going to invite the devil to the dance, but I've already danced with the devil. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? I'm not going to invite, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to be...
We just had that in my house. My son keeps waking up with nightmares, and he'll come running into the house and stuff. And, I try and pray over the room, when they're sleeping and all that stuff. And with me, I was gone over the road, and my wife said the last 3 nights, my son every night was waking up. So 2 nights ago, she went into his room and just almost shouted and just, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, get out of my house.
Yeah.
And said that he slept in the night. And it's just, there's so much truth to it.
Yeah.
But there's another thing that I wanted to bring up. A story, again, we're terrible at our references, but it was about the guy that's walking the fence, and he's not sure whether he wants, like, God saying, "Come follow me," and the devil saying, "Come follow me," and he's, I don't know, and
So it's funny, and you mentioned Discernment last week. I think you're referring to the Bible verse,
I don't know, it might be, but he's
Revelations 3:16, where it says, "He who can be the hot and cold, but lukewarm, I should vomit you out of my mouth."
yeah, okay.
So that's where that.
Well, and so he's walking the fence, and when his time came, he woke up and he was in hell, and he's like, "Wait, I didn't choose hell. Like I was." He's like, "Well, the thing is, I own the fence." It's like, you either fully walk with God, or you're walking with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that verse was in Discernment last.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like God would rather you be hot or cold for him, but he doesn't want you in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't want the middle, and that's he keeps saying, "Oh, Christian it."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was the sermon last week.
That's crazy.
I identify as a Christian, however, I'm walking a secular life. Christian, yes, I'm in that middle ground.
Because when he said that too, I started to interrupt you, but when he said that too, like, dude, that's it. Because he talked about them though too, where he met this guy at this resort, and the guy said, like, but as soon as he found out he was a pastor, he always says he hates telling people he's a pastor because the people stop being real in front of him, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," where the guy said, like, I'm Christian-ish, and he's like, "That's it." And when I heard that too, I'm like, dude, that's it. The majority of society is Christian-ish.
I've always called it Christian adjacent.
Yeah.
And my definition of Christian adjacent is also those that they may not identify as a Christian, but they've walked with enough Christian followers, or that they were raised, or like they have that background. So,
well, what's the Bible verse about where he says that the person that knows my word and does the opposite anyways will be judged harder than the one who never knew my word? You know what I'm talking about?
But I get what your context of what you're saying though too. You know what I mean? Because like, hey, if you're all in, dude, I expect you to be doing these things, not to start reverting back or start going back to your bad habits.
Right.
No, I get it. I do.
Well, one of the things that's been super common in the news is the insurance stuff. And I know in your industry, you work with insurance a lot. So what's your thoughts about what's going on in the world?
That's what I was talking about, pivoting away from it, man. Like so all this stuff that's happening, it's only going to get worse. Man, no, it's not.
Insurance today, the way it is not sustainable.
No, and it won't be, because it's just going to get things worse for you as the homeowner, the consumer, the client of the insurance company. And when they release that notion, like, hey, they're looking at $20 billion in insurance claims alone just for California, and all the devastation that we had in Omaha last year, that was biblical, man. And some people was like, oh, good for you. I'm like, no, actually it was terrible a year for, not necessarily, but I wouldn't say it was a terrible year for businesses. It was a terrible year to pressure and test our systems and our standard order of procedures, or SOPs. It was a terrible year because it broke it, but that's okay. I wanted to see it broken. The same way, like, you have contracts, your attorneys write this stuff for you, all this stuff too. Like, I want to see you break it for me so we can make it better.
Right.
So the same thing too, as we see for insurance and how this is going to play out, like Florida, North Carolina, man, they are suffering, and they will get, I'm not saying they're not over there, but they still get to make that right over there.
Well, and people don't realize that everyone else gets left holding the bag, because they have to make up for that loss that the insurance company took, because an insurance company is a for-profit business. And so when they have to pay out millions and billions of dollars, everyone else has to pay that back into the company, so they wind up getting their rates jacked.
But and that's something too, when a lot of like clients are like, I pay my premiums, I pretty much already paid for this. No, you haven't. Because if your damages were in the upwards up to like $50,000 and you've been in your home and your insurance is like $600 a month, if anything, if in the insurance size, the insurance is upside down, because the way they see it, you've only given us $20,000 and we're giving you $50,000 to repair your home. But that's not how insurance makes your money. Insurance makes your money by taking your money and reinvesting it and hoping that interest gains interest. That's how they earn their money to pay these things out.
Obviously,
pretty much. And so that's how it is, because heck, I've had one customer where he was like 1 month in, 4 days into his insurance claim, he's only paid like $1,000 and he had all new everything.
Hmm.
That was a $60,000 claim.
No.
And you're only 1 month in, dude. Like they're upside down. You know what I mean? So, but the way it's just, this is how I saw this coming, because as they're getting shorter and shorter on field work to have adjusters. They're having more desk adjusters.
Mm.
They're trying to hire more third-party companies to help go do their inspections. And they're drawing more lines in the sand now.
Mm.
And you can come up with the most articulate dissertation of why I need this approval, backed by site references, code references, you name it. And they're just going to tell you straight up, no. I had this one client where recorded the video of the damage being done to their home. It was during the time of tornadoes out in the valley. And they said hail didn't drop. Meanwhile, this dude's recording the event of iPhone, timestamp, location stamp, showing his wife's car getting actually pelted, damaged by it. And they said no, because our radar doesn't show hail was dropped there.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me you calling me a liar? You know what I mean? Like, are you serious? So it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
So that's why a part of it though too, like last year, and I'm sorry, 2023, is I wanted to start pivoting myself into a different type of the industry, into more general construction or building, or actually things that are not controlled by insurance.
Mm.
Because insurance will continue to attempt to control the narrative. They're
incentivized to.
Yeah, they're not in any rush to get you pulled out and get you squared away. They're not. Some insurance companies are better than others, but the majority of the time, they're just going to be like, nah, I'll wait. Let me get back to you in 30 days.
Mm.
They don't say that. You know what I mean?
Thing more commonly is they'll write a check to someone. Like my in-laws, they had a claim on their roof, and they wrote them a check for like $1,500. And as soon as you cash that check, that's an acceptance.
Actually, believe it or not, it's not.
Really?
No. And so
they claim.
No, they just say they give you the money. They're like, yeah, you can deposit the check, or you can just say, I want to cancel the claim, and then just refund the check. So the moment they've already given you that, the moment you cash it, that does, believe it or not, that's actually, I know what you mean. That used to be like, I don't want to call it an old wives' sale, but the moment you cash a check, you accept that, do that.
Right.
No. They already cashed you the check. They've already given you money. They've already given you either the award letter with partial denial or full-on denial letter with no money. That's how it works. So now it's like, how I see it is that check is the foot in the door.
Mm.
And now they're like, okay, if you want to send someone to fight on your behalf, you're more than welcome to, and we'll see what happens.
That's good to know, because I always took it as a gotcha. So we told them, do not cash that check. Just
no, you can still have it. You know, if anything, you're probably better off depositing and put into another account, because if that check goes stale and you do get the approvals, like, all right, well, we already gave, your folks $1,500. Well, I need another check because I already cashed it. Well, that's another 3 weeks.
Well, that's good to know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just going to get worse. Sorry for like my sneeze. It's only going to get worse. And we don't know what's going to happen, but we know people are going to be highly, highly impacted, because as I was mentioned before, your house on your policy, your house could be swept away by a tornado, and your deductible is that standard like $1,500, $2,000 threshold. But if they got impacted by hail, it is 1% to 2% over your all max policy. Don't you have one of those? Yeah, on that one that we're still working on, right? On that
Taylor's what I wanted to tell me about that sixplex.
Oh, really? Okay. So like
that's how we met.
So that's what's still going on. So like you get that 1% to 2% over your overall max policy ban on the commercial, but there's also residential that happens too, man. Where like hailstorm, like I'm $9,000 my deductible. And the consumer's confused though too, because they're thinking, my house is valued at $450,000. No, ma'am, no disrespect. It's your house isn't valued at $450,000. It's what it would cost if it burned down, or
replacement.
The replacement cost, what would it be? So the whole thing was
gone insane.
Right.
So talk about sixplex and insurance claim of that one from the farms. I mean, that was April.
Yeah.
We still
going back and forth.
They sent an engineer up from Texas, drove from all the way up here, obviously had per diem for the day, had to stay at night. I'm like they'll spend that money, but they keep fighting it. they're fighting what's required too. They say yes, they got hit and
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z, but fighting will repair that they'll do.
So like to like where it's like what we actually need so that it's like sustained to make it right, which would only lower your premiums once it's done right. You know what I mean? But they sent the engineer, and then they also sent in a third party ladder company to have a big enough ladder to have us go up there. There's 3 stories because now they don't want insurance companies to go up on anything more than 2-story due to a liability. Because it only takes one. So they sent this company, that company, and then I sent in my information, everything else. And yeah, like, what else do you need? I said we should be good. And the conversation is always cordial. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like we're gonna win this. All right. I just got the email 2 days ago that they're still going back and forth that they require some of these things.
Yeah, last time we got was we're looking into it.
Yeah.
But I was after the
And I thought I had a, and you always assume you have that great rapport, but at the end of the day, people always say like, oh, if you make good with the adjuster, you're going to be good. Man, you could be best friends with the dude when you walk away or feel like you're good friends with that dude at the end of the day, but then you're going to get this letter that says, no, like, oh man, what the? Oh, we were hitting it off. You know what I mean? And then
just super nice. So
yeah,
we had one of those where we had a tree on the roof, like physically on the roof, and adjuster. Well, one, it was a duplex. And he said, oh, I can only inspect this half of the roof. And I was like, no, it's one parcel. We have one policy. He said, well, you filed it under this address. And so it's crapshoot, but that's still ongoing. It's been going since the hail or the tornadoes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it's only getting worse, man. You just gotta, and that's why I say just pivot completely, because, or what we're also trying to do is, put more people into, it's a little bit more money out of pocket, but more so like forever systems where you don't have to worry about getting hit again. Like some of these other homes, like I guess would be in the Regency area or more like Huntington Park area. Like the more stone and brick you got, and you got like more of a tile roof, you're good. But it's us on where we have asphalt shingles, where we have vinyl siding and stuff like that gets impacted. We're more likely going to suffer from it. But if, like for me, like I know I just redid my house, but I was like, well, this isn't going to be my forever home. So I don't need to put on this forever roofing system or this forever siding system. You know what I mean? But promise you this, when we do build our forever home, I'm going to build that thing like Fort Knox. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bulletproof everything, and it's just because people don't know what they have until it's gone. And I'm not talking about that in like a love or marriage type of way. But when their house is impacted and they had realized that this entire time they didn't have the proper coverage, and obviously for on the block, it's too late. In California, it's too late. Florida, North Carolina, it's too late.
Elkhorn, there's people that didn't have insurance on their houses. It was paid off, and it's not,
exactly.
It's incredible,
So, yeah.
So, I mean, with the inauguration coming up soon and all these insurance issues, I feel like the trust that people have in these systems is just diminishing.
Oh, absolutely.
So what direction do you see this year going in?
Trust is already diminished. You know what I mean? It's no longer, and especially now Omaha, because there was a good portion of Omaha where a lot of people never understood the filing of the claim, but now that Omaha's been impacted and the surrounding areas more so than ever, man, people are hyper aware. People are hyper aware of what they could be, screwed over with. And so hopefully now people are doing more of their due diligence, getting the proper policies in place. So I just foresee like people, like insurance companies pulling out of certain parts, policy premiums just getting higher, and then approvals are just going to get, dude, when they send you that new home policy renewal book, are you really going to read through that entire thing? No, you're not. And not to knock your insurance agent though too, but is your insurance agent going to call you and say, heads up, this is what's changing? Nah, dude, you're like,
one of a thousand.
You're one of 1,000, one of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. And that's not to knock the insurance agent, because if I was an insurance agency, no matter how much I read that book, who am I going to hire that's going to be worth a cent of my ROI I need you to call them Mr. and Mrs. Jones and then Mr. and Mrs. Lopez and let them know what's about to happen on their premiums.
Mhm.
But that didn't come from them. That just came down from the pipe.
Right. But then they take the brunt of it, and
Yeah.
I get
And then they find out when the impact happens,
Mm.
so we don't know what's going to happen. We obviously know we've seen a lot of, and part of it on the artisan development side that I've noticed my VP and the project manager we have estimating is that a lot of people were waiting to see who was going to get in office to see builds go up.
Mhm.
We have this thing we follow. It's like a bid board from architectural firms. And towards the end of the year, around November, there was nothing on there to bid on. Nothing. And after the election results and that firm, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's stuff to bid on. And we're bidding on some projects right now. We're working on those. A lot of municipal projects, a lot of bonding projects, a lot of paperwork, but it pays, and it pays consistently, not like insurance.
Mhm.
So the best advice I give is like, man, find a way to pivot and find a way to do some type of financing and not necessarily get out of the insurance game, but find a way that's going to be beneficial for you and the consumer and choose the path of least resistance. That's the best advice I can give for this year moving forward is like, choose the path of least resistance.
So I kind of put a bow on this. What are you going into 2025? What are you looking for? What are you doing in your business? Yes.
I created all of my goals and I put those systems in place because 2 years ago, I was the most stressful I ever was when I was out of town. I thought I was a feather in my hat when I was able to finally take my family to Mexico, and I was stressed beyond belief because the person I had, was making certain decisions and I crashed. And that's when I realized that none of my goals had systems in place. So for what I forecasted for artisan roofing and artisan development and artisan specialty contracting and hopefully this is an acquisition of this company is every single one of those has a system in place, a process to achieve, not just this open wish, like, oh, I hope we do this in revenue this year. I'm hoping we accomplish this and everything else. At the end of the day, it's just, they're target dollar amounts, but at the end of the day, like you said, like the money doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I just know that if I do this, that grateful sign on my pantry stays full.
Mhm.
And I still get to watch my kids eat. So what I forecasted for this plan is to see it coming. And when I don't see it coming, I have somebody else in my ecosystem break these things for me. So to answer your question, it's almost a loaded question, really. You know what I mean? It's where I'm planning to be proactive, tremendously proactive. I'm planning to fine tune all of our systems and our SOPs. I hired this company to help us automate everything, 100% everything, like the least human error possible. If we can make our systems the least human error possible, then we can be more profitable. We can be more consistent with our service. And we're not so reactive to the point where we're trying to do damage control. So, but just some of the things we're doing, man, is, we're bidding the right things. We're doing all the right consistent things in place. And we overall just have an amazing team. My VP on the artisan roofing side, he's doing great things. I VP on artisan development side, he's helping me accomplish great things on the commercial building side as well. And we got some projects that we're bidding on the national level too, man. We're trying to go find the money, not let the money find us, as we try to sit there and wait for another storm to hit or spend more marketing dollars on like Angie's List or trying to do some lead gen stuff. We're going to go seek the money. We're going to go meet with architectural firms. We're going to go meet with the people that are the GCs that put us in contact for these large specialty projects. We're going to put ourselves out there. We're going to geo-target certain companies on the national level, though, too. Excuse me. Like we have some projects that we're trying to land in Dallas that we can go make a traveling crew to. So we're pursuing the money. We're not going to allow the money to pursue us in a sense. because I don't want to be controlled.
Mm-hmm.
I want to control the narrative. I want to control my family's destiny. I want to control that outcome as much as I can control, right? But I'm not going to sit here and allow a company that just sees me as another number decide whether or not if I'm feeding my family.
Mm.
You know, so.
Well, that's awesome. And it'll be interesting to see run this back in a year or so.
All right, kind of see,
See where you're at.
you know, manifest, man, and as God did, you know, speak it into existence. That's my biggest thing this year is manifesting that win, manifesting like, you know, what is it going to feel like when I accomplish this? Who will it impact? How will it make them feel? What emotion am I going to feel when this is accomplished? And when you make it tangible, even though you can't see it, even, you know, when no one else can see it, you have to see it. When no one else can feel it, you have to feel it. You have to make tangible. You have to eat, live, and consume that dream because nobody else will see it or do it. So it's up to you to speak it into existence. It's up to you to manifest. What do you want to accomplish? Don't forget to give thanks to that, dude.
Yeah.
Because I'll take that shit away from you just
I
say, oh,
appreciate it.
yeah, man. Thank you.
I'm gonna manifest the bathroom now. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks, guys.